Okay, I think my microphone's on. So, Chair will bring to order the Single Family Design Board for Monday, October 17th. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address anything that's not on today's agenda? Any item not on today's agenda, please come forward. Seeing no one come forward, Chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for approval of our minutes of our October 3rd meeting, 2016.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Let's go through each of those items before we vote. The first item is item number 1, 1721 La Cornelia Drive. Any changes, questions, comments? Number 2, 1210 Shoreline Drive. Item number 3, 2517 Selrose Lane. Item number 4, 1120 Lunita Plaza. Item number 5, 1106 Crestline Drive. Item number 6, 406 North Ontario Road.
That was wrong.
And that was postponed.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion or comments, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment on item number 2. As part of the first motion, you had asked, you'd requested that staff confirm the existing and continued maintenance of irrigation in the parkway.
Yes.
And so I found the section in the code, section 15.20.090, maintenance responsibility of the property owner. It says an owner of property adjoining a street right-of-way is responsible for maintaining all trees and other vegetation planted between the edge of the pavement nearest said property and the right-of-way line separating the property from the street, except those trees to be maintained by the director pursuant to section 15.20.050. This maintenance obligation shall include keeping such area free from weeds or any obstructions inadmissible to public safety and or contrary to the master street tree plan, the placing of tar, paper, plastic, or other material over the ground, or the use of materials or chemicals intended to permanently sterilize the soil in these areas is prohibited. Nothing in this chapter shall be deemed to relieve the owner of any property from the duty to keep the property, including any adjacent sidewalks and parkway strip, in the front thereof in a safe condition and so as not to be hazardous to public travel. For purposes hereof, the owner shall include any occupant of the property.
So essentially, as I recall, the discussion was whether or not we had the opportunity to direct the applicant to take out the lawn that was there in the parkway and replant it with something else as a part of approval of this project. And the question also became who was responsible for that area between the property line and the parkway edge. And essentially what you just read is basically saying the adjacent property owner is responsible, but it's not clear in what you just read whether or not this body has any authority to require the applicant to change the parkway if that wasn't part of the project. Is that how I understand it? Correct? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's go then to approval of the minutes of the consent calendar for Monday, October 10th.
The minutes for the Monday, October 10th meeting are as follows. Item A, 1011 Arblado Road, received project design approval and final approval is submitted with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara Municipal Code. Item B, 1261 North Ontario Road was continued 1 week to consent with comments to 1, enlarge with pavers to 6x4 concrete rectangles within synthetic turf, and 2, add landscape notes to include proposed new native landscaping.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to consent calendar for this morning, October 17th.
The minutes for the October 17th consent calendar are as follows. Item A, 1261 North Ontario Road, received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code. Item B, 1024 San Diego Road, received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code.
Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any questions, comments? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, let's go to announcements. Katie, do we have announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an announcement that the last item on today's agenda, 406 North Ontario, has been postponed indefinitely at this point.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay. I'd just like to report out on the status of the new zoning ordinance process as it's moving through the city process, and I'm going to pass out some copies I made of the timeline of the process as I now understand it. Everybody get one? There we go. Essentially, what occurred is a month and a half ago on August 29th, I think it was, there was a workshop with members of the council and the planning commission and staff and so forth that I did attend, and I think I reported back out to that. And then the following day, on September 1st, I sent an email to staff based on some things that I observed in that meeting because I had questions. And so I sent an email. I never heard back any response on that email. Not anything. I mean, not thank you for your information or whatever. So it just turned out on Friday morning I had on my list of things to do to find out why I hadn't got response. So I sent an email to Jaime Limon saying, could you help me out on this? Is there a reason why nobody's responded? And within 10 minutes he called me back and he said, gee, I'm sorry, but for whatever reason, nobody has responded to you. And oh, by the way, there is another public hearing today, this afternoon. There's also a public reception at noon, if you'd like to go. So I quickly tried to rearrange my schedule. I couldn't rearrange all of it. But I did attend about 4 hours of meetings last Friday afternoon on the NZO. And what's interesting is that's why I passed out this little schedule that was given to us at that hearing on Friday, is that you can see where it says you are here. We're basically near the end of the process. They're going to apparently proceed with drafting an ordinance, and then they're going to move on to Planning Commission and City Council for approval. In essence, we've kind of missed the whole window. And unfortunately, I don't know, maybe some of you got notices. I never received any notices about meetings, et cetera, or the progress, other than the one I attended back in August. And I had hoped that we would get a response and then our subcommittee could meet again, but unfortunately that didn't occur. So I was told at the meeting on Friday that we may get a courtesy visit by staff before it moves on to Planning Commission, but that essentially may be the end of our ability to have input. So that's kind of where we stand. Several things happen on Friday that are, I think, of interest to the work that we do here in this board. One of the things is the Planning Commission made a recommendation or an agreement with staff's recommendation to allow an increase in size for accessory buildings on large parcels, 20 acres or more, 3 acres or more, to 1,750 square feet, There's also a move to combine what was the size of a garage at 750 square feet on the same parcel with an accessory building on the same parcel at 500 square feet. So now you can have an accessory building at 1250. So we're going to be perhaps seeing some different nuances of if and when this is adopted by council. I did notice, just because I was involved in a project where the definition of basement is, in my, at least the way I read the code, the building code and the current zoning code, the difference between the definition of a basement is not in alignment. The building code, as I read it, says that the California building code says that a basement is defined anything over 6 feet in depth. The city zoning code, where it is defined, is under the definition of how you deal with the FAR. Remember, we talk about that continually.
It's like a 75%.
And it's 50% of the, so forth and so on, all of those. And the basement is defined there as 4 feet. So that's not an alignment. And so those kind of things, I don't know whether they're getting addressed or not getting addressed, but I was kind of hoping that we would be able to have that dialogue with staff as it goes through this process, but apparently that isn't going to happen. So I did have a brief conversation this morning with the current chair of the Planning Commission. He doesn't know where the other 2 review boards in town sit on this issue. He's going to get back to me, but my sense is the zoning process really probably doesn't. They're just going to come and tell us this is what.
They're not letting us participate.
Well, they did. I'm assuming they just didn't feel that our stuff was important enough, or that what we do, that we're different than what they do. I don't know. I've never gotten a response, so I don't know. Anyway, that's my report out on the zoning process at this point. If I hear anything else, I'll let you know, and if there is anything of substance, perhaps we can get our subcommittee together.
Look who's going to come speak.
Yes.
I asked about
Member of our planning commission who was at the meeting on Friday. Yes, sir.
I asked about that, and the answer was that the design review is Title 22, and they're revising Title 28.
Okay.
That was the answer.
That may be
That's
the
the
answer.
rationale.
Fortunately,
But-
we kind of have to live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What does that
we
actually
did
mean?
suggest that all 3 design review boards get brought into the process
Right.
at whatever time they can bring you in. But
Yes.
but the reason that was given to us was it's Title 22, and they're not revising Title 22.
Right. Unfortunately, my observation in the industry, and I happen to sit on another board at my university, which is architecture, has 5 different disciplines, and the thing they continually are challenged with is this kind of silo thinking between each discipline.
Yeah.
And I suspect maybe some of that's going on here.
Well, I didn't agree with that line of thinking, and I don't think anybody else on the commission did. But
So we'll see.
so we'll see what happens
what
in the
happens.
future. And I did get in your request to have a statement as to purpose on things like setbacks in the definition section. To put
Yes.
in purpose statements. So that they said they would.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things I brought up is the fact that in the current zoning code, the setback is defined. We know what setbacks are required, and they're based on various zones. We typically deal with the E zoning portions, and they vary on side yards from 6 feet to 10 feet and so forth, and front yards from 20 feet to 30 feet and so forth. And we see that all the time on this board. But nowhere in the zoning code or anywhere else in the city that I'm aware of do we define why we have setbacks. And sometimes it's very hard to explain to applicants or to owners, why is the city making me do this, or why can't I just leave my house the way it is without having to go get a modification, because now it's because of rezoning in 1975 or whenever, now my house is illegal, and what is a setback and why do I have to have one? And I think it would be important to be able to share that with folks. So, the reason for setbacks is, and the reason we require them are, et cetera. And that language doesn't exist at this point. But anyway, those are part of the conversations. So without further ado, we probably need to move on to our regular schedule.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
You're saying title, whatever, what book is this referencing from? The city ordinance, the Santa Barbara city ordinance?
It's
book?
the municipal code.
It's a municipal code. Yeah, zoning is under Title 28. Our stuff is under Title 22, as I understand it.
Which is architectural or
Well, which is the review process.
review? Okay.
And apparently there was a decision made that those things don't need to talk to each other. Hey, whatever. Okay, so let's move on. So let's go to our item number one. Unless, Katie, there's any other announcements?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then let's go to item number one, 3435 Marina Drive. Okay. While you're sitting down, I'll read why we're here. This is for review after final, as requested in changes in fence material from metal to CMU block with plaster and an alteration of existing site fence CMU wall location on the east-south property line. Project must comply with Planning Commission Resolution number 024-14 and was last reviewed on August 8, 2016. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself.
My name is Paul Zink, and I'm the architect for the project.
Okay.
And in the audience is Allison DeBusk. She's the planner for this project, if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you.
As you're aware, this project was sold to a new person, and the new current owner is tweaking and modifying the house to suit his personal styles and his needs. One of the things that he would like to do, and we have two requests. Along the east property line, our neighbor currently has a 5-foot-high pool fence, and we would like to make that a 5-foot-high masonry fence. It's right here in the location of the pink. And I've taken some pictures just today showing what it looks like from the current existing situation from the street. This is from the kind of on the neighbor side because we have a whole bunch of construction equipment. But basically, you can see that there's the fence that's along the property line, and all we're taking is the existing fence that's 5 feet and making it masonry. This is from our side. You can see the fence right over there. It's currently an open metal fence. From the side of our property looking towards our neighbor, this is what we would like to screen. It's the desire of the current owner. And this is another view from the backyard.
And that current fence is 5 feet now.
Currently, it's 5 feet because it has to be a pool enclosure.
Got it.
Okay. And we have met with the city staff. We've talked to them. We've met with the neighbors. They're all on board. And I'm not aware of any neighbors being here because we've done our homework. On our other, I made a mistake. This is on the west property line. On the west property line. This is the east property line. On the east property line, we currently have a masonry fence up to a certain point, and then we have an open metal fence coming across. This fence is 5 feet high. This masonry fence varies between 5 to 5.5 up to 6 at this one point. It's all documented. What we are going to be doing is we're changing this fence and making it 5 feet all the way across to this point, connecting to the existing 5-foot-high metal fence. So that's what we're doing. Here is a view from the actual street. You can see, let me go back one notch. In this case, there's currently a city easement. The city always wanted to have a gate at both ends. When I had the fence going in at a diagonal, the fence wasn't practical, so I was able to talk them out of it. Now that we're going to go perpendicular to the road, they would like to have a fence here. We will still have a man gate here to the bridge going across this point. So here is the view of the house that's under construction and where the fence is going to go, the 5-foot-high fence. This is approaching it, so you can see all the miscellaneous utility stuff that's happening in vegetation. Now, this is from our neighbor's house, John and Sandy. We met with them to show them so they would understand the impact of what we are doing. We put up the story string pole lines, and they are on board with our proposal. So that is our request today.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any written material?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chair, seeing no one come forward, it'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do, Paul. What was the reasoning that it was designed this way in the first place? And what's the motivation to change it?
The motivation was that the neighbor wants to be able to use this part of his land for his needs.
Okay.
And can we show this in relationship to the full site plan?
Yeah.
So let's put those back. So that one is down here.
Correct. And
Streets down there?
this is Cliff Drive, and this is Marina Drive with the cul-de-sac. There's an existing house here, and then this is the other section.
Okay, so this is occurring where the cypress tree is.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one is occurring over here. Okay. All right. Other questions?
Was there some kind of a neighborhood easement, or how does that tie in?
Correct, and staff can help us on that discussion. It had to do with a visual view corridor along this side and along this side. Landscaping is stepped accordingly along this side, which is why I took the picture from the actual street so you can see how the current situation looks. And then taking this fence that's along this direction and taking it from 5 foot open.
That's this fence, right? Or that wall.
Go.
Oops,
Why don't you grab your other photograph of the fence?
this is the wrong direction. Here, this way.
Yeah, so we're talking about that fence right here.
That fence that's currently
Okay,
there.
so is that on your client's property?
It's currently on our neighbor's property, and what we will be doing is we'll be putting a fence that's 50-50.
So it's basically on the same line? So
Yeah.
whose property does it sit on?
Currently, that fence sits on this neighbor because he built his house first.
So I understand that. So if you rebuild it, will it be in the same location?
It's going to be on the property line, so it's going to be a 50-50
It's going to be
split.
dead right on the property line.
Correct. So 4 inches, my client will lose a little bit of land.
Okay, and then down here, so this one's going to be masonry with plaster, and I'm assuming going to be capped and finished similar to where the other fences that are already being constructed on the site.
Correct.
And so is this fence down here that's going to get redone over here to this, is that masonry or what's going on
No,
there?
this is going to be open metal, continuing with the open metal that's here. We have a 5-foot-high metal fence.
Okay, and do
This
you have
is
that-
not going to be a masonry
Is
fence.
that showing what that looks like on these drawings?
There was a detail, but I did not print it out.
Kind of a chain link fence, isn't it?
This is, what's note number 9 state?
Number 9 is, whoops.
5-foot-high max rod
Wrought
iron.
iron fence, so is that,
Yes,
so is that just a fence that looks like that, picket fence? Like
correct.
this?
Because it has to be non-climbable for pool.
So it's like that,
Yes.
and it's black, and that's what we approved as part of the main project.
That's what we approved for this section over here. These people over here had a chain link fence, and the
Okay.
chain link is a tighter wove.
Got it, okay. So this, all you're requesting is to straighten this wrought iron, or not wrought iron, but metal picketed fence, straighten it out and go this way, and the gate's a metal picket to match, I
Correct.
assume? And then there's a person gate here,
Correct.
and then it goes up, and then it hits the wall of
Masonry
masonry.
with plaster on both sides.
Okay, and when I was out there Friday, a lot of this is being built right now, and what I was confused about is, where am I looking at? Where is the ditch? Is that this thing?
Yes.
Okay, so this is that concrete swale that goes out, correct?
Correct. It stops at this point.
Right.
It's basically this area.
Gotcha. Okay, so the fence is basically
On the
crossing over it at some point, but on the inside at this point.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any questions?
The bridge you're talking about is right here over that swell?
Yeah, it's just the bridge so that if they are ever to walk to Henry's Beach, they can come back this direction.
Right, and they have another bridge down here.
Just so that they can get to the other side.
Yeah. And this wall is already built here.
Yes.
That one's already built. Okay. Okay, other questions? Okay, if no other questions, then let's go to comments. This is a review after final, so we just have to decide whether or not we accept the proposal, what is being proposed.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could we ask the planner if there's any comments from the city or any feedback?
Thank you. I was here just to remind you about the 30-foot view corridor and that there is a condition of approval about it. It states the maximum height of landscaping, et cetera. Staff feels that a wall fits within that. It's not going perpendicular to the view corridor. It's running down it. So we find that it would be acceptable if it's acceptable to the board.
Trees are in a view corridor, right?
Could be.
No. Big ones.
Yeah,
The purpose was to maintain the view.
maintain these cypress. As we went through that original review.
So this will be a locked gate, I take it, because there's a lot of activity in front of that, right? On the Cliff Drive.
On the Cliffs Drive, but it's basically going to be a secure perimeter, and we have a swimming pool, and so we have to be able to have a 5-foot enclosure to keep people out of the pool.
Okay.
So it will be locked.
Tell me again, I'm still trying to understand. Where is this opening right here? Right here?
That is this direction looking this way.
So that's that gate right there.
That? No.
No, that gate is here, and they added that since then. These
Because I couldn't figure out where the gate was.
okay. It's not
these
this gate.
posts right here are the posts that are
So
in
there's
this.
now a gate right about here.
There's a gate right in here.
Yes. And what we will be ending up doing is bringing a revised landscape plan, but I'm not ready for that at this point. And it will take care of this
Okay.
gate that has been added.
And if you've been out there, you'll notice that this wall, this is west, right?
This is the west side.
Yeah. That wall that goes down in front of that house, they've now planted a hedge right behind that wall, so that hedge is now up at 7 feet or something, but it's above the 5 feet mark of this wall. Okay.
The interesting thing about this hedge that you referred to, it starts from this point and continues west.
Right.
That hedge is not in this area because this was regulated.
That's
View
that
corridor.
That's
Exactly.
point that right there.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay. Other comments? Hearing no other comments, Chair would entertain a motion.
If he's coming back, we can't give him.
No, it's a review after final, so we
Yeah.
just have to decide whether or not we accept what he's proposing as a change. We can approve it or not approve it.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to give this project final approval.
Okay.
I think he's followed the Good Neighbor guidelines. The quality of material is appropriate. Architecture and is in consistency in appearance with the style of the architecture in the neighborhood.
And would the maker of the motion want to recognize that we're aware of the view corridor and that the westerly wall doesn't violate that?
Yeah, where's my minutes? Where's that? Yes, and the board is aware of the view corridor that is already stipulated on the plans, and that the current change of design does not interfere with that view corridor.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to
I'll
that motion?
second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you very, very much. Have a great day.
Okay.
I don't need them. Thanks.
Here's that. Here's this. Where are we? 3:30. We're right on schedule. Okay. 1807 Lighthouse Way. This is here for final approval.
Yeah.
Project was last reviewed on January 5th, 2016. So we have, she's got drawings.
I bet she does.
Okay. As soon as we get her drawings.
Is this
and
the
we get-
last lot?
No,
Still working.
we'll be dribbling one more in.
I went by there. You're well underway over there, though, huh?
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are starting to take notice.
Yeah. I'll bet.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
See all kinds of construction.
Here's all
Yeah,
kinds of
because you see
construction.
equipment and, you know.
It always upsets
Change.
people. It's change. Yeah.
The cutest part is, though, that all the moms and their little sons are, you know, getting a free show every day.
Yeah.
So,
See big
Watch it
tractors.
get grown.
the big tractors, yeah.
Tractors. So Katie, do we have comments from our, whatever we did last time? Okay, Mr. Miller, if you want to read that, please.
The motion was the board had positive comments regarding the project consistency and appearance, neighborhood compatibility, quality of architecture and materials, and acceptable landscape plan. Action taken by Bernstein, seconded by Letitia. Motion was carried.
Okay, thank you. And before I forget it, if you'd introduce yourself for the
Oh,
record, please.
yeah. Bruce Bloodon, and I represent the developer.
Okay. So you're here for final. Do you have any changes that you need to show us?
Just a subtle one, and we had, let's see. There are always two dormers on the front of the building, and the architect thought, why not make them, real instead of just plant-ons? So we have a window in front here, window in front here, so you get downlight in the entry, downlight in the bathroom. And
You got volume ceilings in those locations.
yeah, we had volume ceilings. So
Here?
yeah,
Volume ceilings, anyway, you just open them to the donors.
yeah,
So that pops open. Okay.
yeah, which will be nice.
And the elevations. So we're on the next page, right here and here.
Yep, that's it.
Didn't change the elevations, it just opened.
No, it didn't change the elevations at all.
Okay.
Just made functional.
All right. So we're going to go through very quickly and see if we're satisfied that this looks like final set of drawings. Okay. So we got site plans, we got building code. Electrical sections, elevations, structural details, lighting.
Whoa.
Planting plan for the area they have to plant. Landscape detail, et cetera, okay? Right, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any written comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Seeing no one go forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions and comments. Anyone have questions?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I'm pretty sure we already looked at the materials and the colors and all of that. We've
Yeah,
already
we
done.
did.
Those
And I
are all in the
did.
file. There should be a set in the file.
It'd be nice to refresh a little bit.
Okay. So those are the colors, that's the lighting fixtures. Other questions? Okay, comments? Okay. Other comments?
Well, looks like a full set to me.
Okay. All right. If there are no further comments, then the chair would entertain a motion. This is for final approval. And this will have an appeal, a 10-day appeal period if we do in fact give it final approval. So, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Joe?
I move that we approve the project, give it a final, and based on its review of what we've asked you to do, and it's consistent with the appearance and compatibility with the neighborhood, and quality of materials, and you have a full set of plans.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Any further comments? Any discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay?
Okay.
This has a 10-day appeal period for that approval.
Very good. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. let's go to, we need to wait a few minutes. So our next item is going to be item number 3, 45 Las Alturas. We need to recess for about 5 minutes. Single Family Design Board. Our next item is item number 3, 45 Las Alturas Circle. This is here for project design approval. The project was last reviewed on May 16, 2016. Afternoon. If I could have you introduce yourselves, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Cottrell, architect.
Chris Gilliland, landscape architect.
Jarrett Gorin, land use planner.
Drew Finley, owner with my husband, Sally Pan.
Okay, welcome. Okay. Mr. Miller, can you read the comments from our last review, please?
Number one, the board asks that the addition to the home to the first and second floor be studied and designed to be more compatible with the neighborhood and existing homes. Number two, bring into play the Cliff May architectural style. Number three, owners must meet with the neighbors to comply with Good Neighbors guideline. Number four, windows locations need to be considered carefully to maintain privacy both for the owners and the neighbors. Number five, landscape plans and sections to scale need to be included at the next review. Action taken by Pierce, seconded by Woolery. The action was carried.
Okay, thank you.
unanimously.
So if you could share with us how you address those items and any other changes you may have made?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go over the architecture, then Chris will talk about the landscape, and the owner has a few words to add as well.
And I'll talk about the neighbors.
Okay. So we studied the existing house in addition to the addition. I think last time there was some comments about how the new addition felt like an addition. So what we did is brought the existing house aligned with the new addition. So the main move on that was to look at this very interesting soffit extrusion that the house has right now. It was an element when the house was built, and now I think it's seen its better days. So the idea is to remove that. And so we're removing some roof, bringing that rake back, and adding glass a la Cliff May, bringing some of that lightness back and taking out that big extension. And that happens in the house in a couple different locations. And so that is completely gone now. That was on the carport, so the new garage rake doesn't have that. That was on this bedroom and also on the dining room. So we've chopped that back and just simplified that detail.
I'm going to stop you
Yes,
just
sir.
for a moment. Could you, for orientation, just kind of give us
Absolutely.
where that is?
Thanks, Jeff.
Relationship to the street?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Lost Church Circle is right here. This is the double hatch is the second floor addition. We got 2 roof decks. This is our removal of that eave.
Yeah.
Alright. And so that happens there, and there. So you can see it here. It's in 4 locations. Thanks, Jared. So we added glass to the upper eaves there. So you can see that existing house has some of that. That's the existing bedroom on the north side. The addition, we've incorporated some of that element. So on both sides of the addition, this is, I can show you in plan where we are right here. This is the view off this new little deck. So the 2 decks are roughly 100 square feet in size. These are just sitting decks. These are not huge decks to be inhabited, but they're both small decks. And that's this one there. So the glass runs up in that gable up there. This is the garage.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the glass.
Got it.
Where that decks, those 2 decks are right there. Back.
Yeah, they're apart. They're apart. We also looked at the stair. So in the previous rendition, the stair was in line with our second story addition. We broke that out, and that gave some relief to the street side facade. So when we're looking at this is the street facade. The stair is articulated on the facade, and it gives the roof a nice break there. We also reduced the size of this chimney. In addition, we've added a gate and a man gate, and this is the existing 5-foot stucco wall. It's a 5-foot wood gate and another piece of stucco wall. And that sort of ties everything together. Regarding the privacy concerns and the windows, we have a couple sections to look at. So this is the window for the stair. This is the street side window. And let's see if I can see this upside down. Our other window that was a point of concern is this window here. So just to orient you where we are, there's one window and there's the other. This is the stair. So we are 42 feet from the property line, just to the corner of the building. Now this window here, we've got a sight section running through right there for that window just to see where it is. It actually is above the stairwell. This is 16th, let me show it to you at 8th. So that window sits 8'5" above where you would be on the landing. So that's not a viewing window.
This is facing which direction?
This is facing 44 Las Alturas.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And then the other...
Facing south?
Facing south.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, facing south. The other window is on the stair. It's as you're traveling through the stair, it is roughly 4 feet above the stair tread right there.
So this is what's 1/8 inch?
Yeah, this is 8 inch. Yep.
So am I rendering that correctly? Somebody standing
That's
on that
correct.
platform?
Yep.
And that's facing the street, right?
That's facing the street. And we've got, and Chris can talk about this, but we've got a series of screenings going on. There are 2 existing trees in this front courtyard, and then Chris is going to talk about the additional screening we're doing at the front. So there's a filter to that. I'm going to show you an elevation. Let's see, so Joe, that's that window there. This window's in the shower. It's going to be a frosted window. It's not a privacy concern. The other, just to show you the deck, let's see, there are 2 little master decks. And the one that is nearest to 44 Las Alturas, the section, and the owners put up story poles so we could see this too, and we have the photos, but the section shows that the house itself, the garage, is screening that deck. So the whole addition is wedding caked in the middle. The outdoor spaces on the second floor are tucked in with that second-story addition. Yeah, our plate, the kitchen has a 9-foot ceiling, and the master has an 8-foot plate.
So you've stayed with the 8-foot plate at second floor?
We did. We pulled before we had shorter eaves, so we pulled those out. These are bifold windows, so if you're out on this deck, that's a 6'8" rafter tail right there.
So you require, go ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
dropping it down, it was going to be a conflict with the window. So, let's see. The other things we looked at is the amount of glazing. We did a reduction there and sort of a simplification just to get everything working together. We had windows on the master running to the corner. We reduced that size, brought the windows up to the eave level. Same with down here. And then, like I said, we brought these windows all the way up to the top of the gable. And with that, I'll pass it off to Chris Gillen to talk about the landscape screening, unless there's some questions.
We'll come back to questions, but go ahead and do your landscape.
Good afternoon. So, in terms of the landscape, we're actually saving most of it. So much of what you see here is existing to remain. It's fairly mature, and we don't see a reason to change it at this point, especially given drought conditions. So the only areas that we are touching are up towards the cul-de-sac. That landscape's not quite as nice anyway, but it also gave us an opportunity to sort of mimic what's happening in the rest of the cul-de-sac. There's a ligustrum hedge that kind of spans most of the rest of the cul-de-sac, so we're actually continuing that around to provide some, 6 to 8 foot height screening. And then we've also added a couple of olive trees, 36-inch box, to help screen the view from the cul-de-sac towards the addition, which I guess would be about here. Over here, okay. Beyond that, the addition of the gates, as Chris mentioned, and we're fencing this off, so we add a little pathway there. Otherwise, and I have a few pictures showing what the existing condition looks like. You can see this is basically standing in the driveway here, one looking this way and another looking this way, showing that we already have significant screening all along this property line, especially from about here to here. We have these very large ficus cylinder sort of topiary
Property
trees.
line is more or less there.
Yes.
Okay. So the project we're talking about is to this side, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So those ficus run down this line and stop somewhere in this area. So from here to there, these are probably 14 feet tall, I think. And we also have some existing hedge screening here that we're going to keep to remain. And that's very minimal on the landscape, aside from existing.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to briefly address meeting with the neighbors. We tried to have a neighborhood meeting last week. I brought around and hand-delivered invites to everybody on Los Alturas Circle and then the houses that were also downhill from us. Everybody sort of that has indicated an interest in the project before and anything close to it. This is a copy of the invite letter. I don't think we've submitted this, so I would like to submit it so it's in the record here. And then that's a list of the addresses that we delivered it to. The meeting we tried to schedule is for 7 o'clock on Wednesday last week. I also put on that invite that if you couldn't make it to the meeting, contact me and we can make other arrangements to come in and look at plans and provide information. And I also provided all the information to all the standard city repositories of plans and people that neighbors could talk to as well. Nobody attended our meeting. I got 2 emails from neighbors saying they couldn't make it out of the 12 that we delivered it to, and then just didn't hear from anybody else, and nobody showed up on Wednesday night. We sort of predicted that 1 or 2 of the neighbors would say, oh, well, we didn't have enough notice or something, and then that would be their claim for why we hadn't met guidelines. So I wasn't too surprised when I saw that comment in one of the letters that you guys received. But again, we invited 12 people. And I don't think it is, well, it's hard to assert that 12 out of 12 just couldn't make it to a meeting scheduled after business hours that they had 5 days notice for. Just for a reality check, this was not the only neighborhood meeting that we had on projects last week. We had one for 406 North Onter, which got continued off the hearing today. Also delivered notices the exact same day as this project on Friday of the week before. And in that case, an interested neighbor contacted us on Monday, actually invited us to have the meeting out in their neighborhood. We obliged them, and we had about 25 people show up to that meeting. So clearly, typical people, 5 days notice for a meeting after hours seems to work when 25 of them show up to the other meeting. Honestly, I'm not sure that these 2 particular neighbors, given their comments and their previous comments, are really seeking any sort of real compromise with us, but that's just me speculating. We did make a good effort to try to do this, and nobody showed. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that, and then I'll let the owner talk.
Okay, thank you.
I really just want to say, I apologize for not being here previously. It's unfortunately difficult for us being in New York and working, and I know that the neighbors had indicated that they wanted a chance to speak in person. Personally, I think it's better for them to speak to the architect because I am not knowledgeable. I sort of know what we want, and he can explain and then sort of work from what they suggest or what they're looking for. But had we been able to, I would have. We also, between the 2 of us, unfortunately have 3 very ailing parents all over the world. So that's also been difficult, to say the least. We are very, this is our sort of dream home. Hopefully, eventually we can retire here. We love Santa Barbara. We are very concerned about having good relationships with the neighbors. When we first bought the house, I went over and introduced ourselves. And I understand that there are concerns. I understand privacy concerns particularly. We are very sensitive to that, I'd like to say, because, they don't want to be looking up into our house, and neither do we want to look into theirs. And the landscaping is really important to me because I think that's a beautiful way to naturally address everybody's concerns. I think that's about all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, the chair is going to open it for public comment. I do have copies of 2 public communications. Katie, before we start, did we get anything else besides these 2 that we
There
received?
should have been 2 letters that you also received, or emails.
This is from Michael Jan Jaffe and from Donald and Carolyn Voigt. Anything else?
Yes. We also had the former owner would like to publicly acknowledge that he is no longer the owner, and we'll clear that from.
Never was the owner, you just put it down there.
Okay. We will clear that from the record.
So that's it.
He was not the former owner, and we will
So we're
fix
going to
that from the
clarify
record.
that. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go then to our first public speaker, and I'm going to need.
The seat, I'm
Yeah,
happy
can we
to do
use that seat, please? Donald Voigt, you have 2 minutes to address the board, please.
I shouldn't need more than 2 minutes, but if I do, I have 2 other people who are willing to cede their minutes to me. My name is Don Vogt. I'm at 30 Las Alturas Circle. I'd like to straighten out a couple things. We were not contacted by the owners at any time. I met the 2 owners out at the end of our driveway for about 2 minutes one time shortly after they purchased the house. Have never had any other contact with them. In terms of attending Mr. Garrett's meeting, Jarrett's meeting, we were hand-delivered the notice on the whatever it was, on the 7th, I believe, for a meeting on the 12th. I'm surprised that he got such good attendance on some of his others, but as far as I was concerned, that was not long enough notice to attend a meeting. In addition, the meeting was to talk about plans that had already been submitted, not plans that were going to be discussed in advance. We got nothing from these people from the 16th of May until that day, the 7th of October. There was plenty of time in there to have arranged a meeting, to have said that they wanted to come and talk about what their plans were and get some feedback from us. None of that was done. They came up with out of whole cloth change in their plans and submitted them and put it on the schedule. So from the standpoint of their meeting that requirement, I don't believe they did. From our viewpoint, at this point, the board has made it clear that they do not have the purview to outright deny a second story, which we understand, but they also have made it also very clear that they would like to have a significant impact on the design, and the chairman spent a considerable amount of time in the last meeting discussing Cliff May. I didn't hear that come up once in their presentation right now. And what they've presented as the new plan looks pretty much like the old plan. It's just a box on top of the house, and I think it's really ugly. I don't think it comports with the neighborhood, and I don't think it comports with the property.
Okay, thank you. Michael Jaffe, speaker number 2.
I'll make this really quick. First of all, I have to respond to this fine gentleman. It was a little bit of a disingenuous offer. It's a week before he's going to meet with you. The plans were already done and submitted. They clearly had no interest in our view. And had we had a view, they wouldn't have had an opportunity to affect it or change it or get you new plans. So that's why none of us showed up. From my point of view, since I'm the most adjacent neighbor, I'm the guy with the privacy issues because their thing overlooks our bathroom and our bedroom.
And to be clear, sir, where are you?
44 Las Alturas.
Is that this one? This is to the
Yes.
south? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Next door, right? You're right next
So,
door.
right next door, 44, the black and white house. I think you mostly have seen it. Yeah, right there. So this is their house. This whole thing could have been solved if...
Speak into the microphone,
Yes, we need to
okay.
speak into the mic.
Sorry, I wanted to point to something. This whole thing could have been solved if we had had an opportunity to consult and suggest that they take this pop-up and instead of having it face the street with its broad facing, which upset everybody aesthetically, turn it around 90 degrees and put it over here. They'd still have mountain views. They'd still have water views. They'd still be right over their pool. It would be very attractive. It would solve my privacy issues and blah, blah, blah. But we never got a chance to discuss these alternatives with them. And that's the only thing, Why not have a friendly neighborhood conversation? I know Rick, is it? Chris, sorry. Chris had mentioned some time ago that they had thought about other versions, but they didn't like them, and blah, 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 and there was this problem or that problem. But this solves it, from my point of view, and I just think we should have had a chance to talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Because the way it is now, it doesn't solve it for us.
Next speaker is Thomas Monroe.
I live at 20 Los Alturas Circle, and I can certainly understand these people's desire to have a dream home in Santa Barbara. I just moved there in January into what was a new home. That home, in its design, we bought it as a spec home, so we weren't involved in the design of it. But its second story, or story that went up, was disallowed. Its second story goes down the hill, like most all of the other houses on that street, so that from the street it appears to be a single-story home. My observation is there's plenty of slope there to build down. I don't know if that was considered, but nobody was talked to in advance, and we got your note stuck in our door, but it's way after the fact, and your plans are already submitted, so I think that was a little kind of a vicious attack to say we didn't show up. It's pointless to show up. You ought to have it cake baked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last speaker I have is Henry Fletchman.
I gave my plan to Don Boyd.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Give those back to Katie, please. Seeing no one else come forward, and the two previous letters, Mr. Jaffe already spoke. Mr. Boyd already spoke. And we have the letter from the planner. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Chair is going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions and comments. This project is seeking project design approval.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, on sheet 820, I just kind of got a couple of questions about the chimney on your west elevation, I guess. There's a line that goes through it. What, is that?
Yeah, no, it
that's
should
a
not be there.
computer drafting.
Yep.
There's something else about that chimney that puzzled me. Oh, why is it wider? Why do you have it going wider like that?
The existing chimney is about 2/3 of that.
Mm-hmm. So the existing chimney is like this?
Right.
Oh, so
But it's not that tall, so it's something like that. Right.
So it's kind of an aesthetic thing that you scooch it over to do that.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Any questions?
I wonder if we might be able to see the plan before this one? See the difference. Have there been
Can we put it on the
quite a
camera?
lot of changes to this?
I see that.
Definitely.
Put it on.
Counter, and let's see, this is the previous. Okay, so we're going to put that next to, let me do this. So we can see it.
Unfortunately, they're not exactly.
You guys always do this. Put them in the same order.
All right.
So
You do that just to.
So north
Yeah.
is the second one on this page on the top.
that one is north, this one is north. So these two, so that's what was submitted before. So this is the second story addition.
Right.
There were two windows and some clear, is that clear?
Yep.
Windows up here?
Yep.
So those have been eliminated, and we've gone to one window. And this is west, there's west. So west, that piece that he was showing.
It was a hip, and now it's a.
No. It
was a gable.
Soffit extrusion.
It's
Yeah,
that,
soffit thing, yeah.
yeah, that's what he was showing at the beginning.
It was kind of a Frankenstein.
Here it is, I'm sorry, right here.
Oh,
So
okay,
as he
okay.
mentioned, he said to go to a Cliff May design, he went to this. Okay, so that was Cliff May. And then, okay, now something, what's
It's a
going
wall
on
and
here?
gate now.
Yeah, so in this version, we didn't show it. In this version, we're showing the existing stucco wall, and then this is the new gate. So the
Okay,
new
is
gate's
this piece
just-
of wall there now too?
No, this
Okay.
piece of wall is not
All
there.
right, so
But
everything from here over is new.
That's right. The property line is angled.
And
right
what's
there.
the garage door material going to be made?
These are right now. These are glass garage doors.
But they're hidden with the new wall.
That's correct.
Right, but so a piece of the glass appears in front of the new
That's
wall.
right.
And we'll go back to that in a second. So that new wall, let's just go back very quickly to the site plan.
The old one?
No.
This is the old one.
Whoops.
We can still use that to look at.
Let's get rid of it real quick. So that wall and gate is out here.
That's right.
That's what we're looking at.
That's
this
right.
one. All right. And then we had, what did we look at? South. South is, where are we at? South is here. So this is that wall coming across. So those windows are there. That's now a set of, that's doors.
Yeah, that's existing. That's existing
this is the wall.
entry.
Okay, there's
show
the
the
fireplace
That's
there.
right.
That's the fireplace there. There's a window here.
Right, so we removed that
They
soffit.
removed this whole soffit thing that mimicked that earlier soffit. This goes back to, well, there's a piece of glass up here.
In place of the soffit.
Yeah. So this is that balcony. This is the balcony that sits back. So that's kind of more or less the same. That's existing. And then we got, what is this? East. East is, that's existing.
I simplified that window.
That window got simplified. Those are the same. These windows got moved in from the corner.
That's right.
Smaller, not as high.
And the eaves lowered.
Well, the eaves lowered, so they're basically, they're about at this, they're probably at 6'8", was typically what you do on a second floor. Quickly check.
Did the height of the addition come down?
It is, well, the height as far as, we had added a little bit just for framing on this version, and we dialed it in here, so the height did come down.
How far?
19 inches. Yeah.
19 inches.
Okay, so the whole height of the whole roof has come down 19 inches, so better than
If you left the sorry, if you left the walls, the plate heights are at 8 feet up there, so it wouldn't change the height of the roof, would it?
That's right. We just had too much framing on the roof before, so that's what brought it down. Yeah.
19 inches
Well,
of framing?
Yeah. That's
foot and a half.
It was
Yeah,
conceptual.
over a
Yeah.
foot
I
and a
mean,
half.
we got to the dial it in. Yep.
Okay.
Here we are.
And then, so this piece there. Okay, so are you,
So, yeah,
to the
front floor.
Yeah, that helps a lot. It is. So the whole addition has come down 19 inches.
But you did change the
Thank you.
the slope of the roof.
I think it just got clarified what it is. The existing roof is 3.5 and 12.
yes.
Can you tell me how tall the house is now?
If I'm using this as the finished floor line, which looks like at the bottom of that,
20.
it appears to be about 22 feet to the ridge. Okay. Under the city's single-story residence, remember we don't look at single-story homes typically unless they're in a special district. Those are defined as anything under 17 feet 6 inches. So that line represents a single-story house that allowed in fact, all places within the city, whether they're in special districts or not. So this is more or less 4.5 feet higher than that. Single-story criteria.
Why was the ficus tree, what was that reason for the hedge, the 14-foot? That is,
It exists.
yeah, but why does it exist? Can you answer that?
Can we go back to the photograph? So, this is a hedge, and I assume that's a tree. Is that right? If I recall, that's a tree. That's a ficus tree. That's a ficus tree. This is a hedge, and under the new hedge ordinance,
This is just a one tree.
Yeah, it's a tree.
You can see actually in this picture, there's a series of them. They run down the property
And
line.
they're 14 feet tall.
Here's a good
I'm
picture of that,
estimating based on the
actually.
photos, but seemed about right.
So there it is there. That's the same, basically the same thing. This hedge here is 8 feet high, and it may be 8 feet, maybe less than 8 feet. But under the new hedge ordinance, you're allowed to have an 8-foot hedge on the front property line.
I'm not questioning the height of it, I'm questioning the reason for it.
Oh, well, these are on the, those are the neighboring properties.
Can I ask the neighbor for that?
They're not on review.
I just,
Not appropriate.
for a view, for,
Ask the neighbor why the hedge is so high.
Oh,
There are other hedges over on this side on other properties that are just as high.
I think if we're questioning privacy and we have 14-foot, I have a right, Brian, I have a right to ask why.
So let's go back to the plan just for a second.
I'm just questioning why, if we're questioning privacy here, and all of a sudden we're on the neighbor's,
Public comment is now complete. The discussion is to the board. Thank you. So we don't have, that's in here somewhere. That hedge and tree that we're looking at is in here. Where's your aerial photograph?
I'm looking for one. We probably do. Let me look for it real quick.
Okay. All right, while he's doing that, do we have other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Again, so I'm looking at these pictures of the story poles. Is that from the first iteration? Oh, okay. So this is not.
So
It's lower than this.
And I have a question too. One of the neighbors brought up the issue of if it going this way, not that way. Was there a reason why you didn't go that way instead of this way?
Yeah, there were a couple. The existing living room is already vaulted, and the kitchen is not. So it would be removing a vault from the living room already, which is sort of 2 steps back. And then
I think in our
that's
previous,
precedent. Yeah, that's
I
a nice
think in-
design art project. Sorry.
Beautiful.
I think in our previous, before you presented there was several discussions of why it was put where it was put.
I have a good aerial here. I mean, the best aerial we're going to do, but it shows these clearly. So these are, that's
So
the
that's
Jaffe
that
property.
first-
This is ours.
Here's the first hedge you see.
1, 2, 3, 4 of them.
4 of them down there. Here is the house. The second floor addition that we're looking at is over here.
Okay. All right.
Roughly, kind of right there. Right? And the little deck, as presented in the presentation, is seated inside the ridge of that ridge
roof
there.
of the garage
So
roof.
that's that little, and then the other little deck is out here. And those 3 windows that are off this bedroom are right there. So they're facing that direction. Okay. And there appears to be a hedge here also, correct?
Yes.
And that's on the other property? Your property?
I believe it's on both.
Okay, so it straddles the property line.
Okay, it's on the neighbor's property then.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's Ligustrum.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
I'd just like to get the aerial and we can just point out. I'd like to see
Go back to
exactly.
that area.
Sorry.
Oh, not the aerial, the street view. Sorry.
This one? Which
Yeah,
street?
the
This.
one that shows the house and the story.
Just talk into your microphone. You don't have to talk into the box.
But just make sure it's
Brian. Anyway, I just wanted to. Would you show exactly where all the new olive trees are going to be screening for the purpose of the public?
Looks to me like.
So right in front of that bedroom.
It looks like it's. Whoops, sorry.
Yeah, I'm
Appears
just
to be lined up with this
questioning
eave, so it would
the
be
exact placement and what exactly you're intending
about
to.
here. Something to that effect. There's 2. The second one being over this direction.
They're about like that.
Okay.
It would screen some of that new window you put in, that gable.
And actually looking at this, we
That
could
gable right there
consider
that you filled in with glass.
a third one.
How about a third one? Yeah.
Okay.
Are there olive trees on around, or are those just 2 new olive trees?
2 new olive trees.
There's no other olive trees.
Not that I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the olive trees, these particular species grow how high, more or less?
25 feet.
Okay, other questions? I just have a couple on your elevation on the chimney. Where am I? Right here. Are you going to have any kind of chimney cap, or is this going to be a gas fire? What's going on?
Yeah, and we are going with a standing seam roof here, so I was going to mimic that with maybe a 4-inch flush chimney cap of the same color.
Okay. So that's what this line, these
That's
two lines
correct.
represent? Okay. And then over on this side, these rafter tails are going to be exposed. So, and I know you're still at design development. So are you going to have any gutters here, or is the water just going to come off that?
Yes, we are having gutters. I think we did not show the
Okay,
downspouts.
so somewhere there'll
Yeah.
be downspouts, et
That's
cetera.
right. That's correct.
And given what, are you thinking now that those gutters would cover those rafter tails, or
No, I'd like to see the rafter tails.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll see those rafter tails.
Yeah, it should. This is actually modeled with a gutter on it. I think you can see it in these guys, but yeah, we didn't show the downspouts.
So you will delineate those so we can see that on.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then we'll have rafter tails on this side, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. That's the only questions I had. Any other questions?
Yes,
Yes.
for the architect. So I heard you answer the question about, turning the house in a different direction. But what about, did you explore the idea of putting the house lower? And what was the reason that you aren't doing that?
Yeah, there are a couple. Thanks for asking. The leading reason is this is the existing building footprint. So we are not increasing any impermeable area with this remodel addition. Another is that this is actually built up right here. So this is really poor soil on this side, and there's a lack of flat areas. So we looked at maybe coming out here, and there's a big mature avocado here, and also it would be a hall along an existing bedroom to get to a second bedroom. It just doesn't work functionally without really ripping that area up. And obviously the views from up here are a different view than over here, and so there's a way to explore that with this addition.
Okay. We did spend about half of one of our previous meetings discussing all the different locations.
Well, I still want to bring it up so we can have it out there anyway.
We did go over that in depth, I think, the last meeting. I just want to go over the issues of window placements, so I'm going to mark on your drawing here. This is the windows here. There is a window here, and there is a window right there, right? And the staircase is in here.
That's right.
Okay, and I just illustrated a moment ago on your section that somebody standing here can look out that window, but there's no way to look out this window because the staircase is too low at that point. You'd have to get on a ladder to look out that window, correct? And that window, I'm assuming this is relatively accurate. This is the face of the other house, or is that the face?
This is the roof line, and that's the face.
Okay, so the face of the other house, and we don't know exactly where those windows are, but if there's any windows on that surface, from that window that you can't see out of, that's almost, if this scales correctly, 70 feet to here, and there's a hedge in here somewhere. And the trees, kind of those big 14-foot trees, kind of stop right here, and then there's hedges. There's a couple other trees, at least from the aerial photograph in here. And then from these windows here, if I look directly straight out, it's looking past the corner of the house. If I'm looking from that far corner window to this house, that from this point is 80 feet. This is scaled correctly. This is when it's 1/16. So that's 80 feet from here to there. That's 75 feet from here to there. And let's see, there's a window that looks that way, but you can't really look out of it because the staircase is, oh no, excuse me, that's where you do look out.
Can't see that.
Okay, and the two trees that we're talking about being planted are roughly kind of right there based on your plan. Okay. And then, was there another window over here?
There's a shower window, but it's frosted.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a shower window here. Okay. All the other windows are facing towards Montecito and Carpinteria, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. If there are no further questions, then let's go to comments. The applicant is requesting project design approval.
I have some comments, Mr. Chair. I kind of understand where Mr. Matisha was going with the reason the hedges are so tall. But I think I'm the one that brought up the Cliff May style. And I grew up looking at sunset books of Cliff May. And Cliff May had a philosophy. His philosophy is we were coming from an era of very formal architecture. And his purpose was to bring architecture to the people and to be a very calming, casual lifestyle. It's very popular in the 50s. A lot of his homes, it was about introducing outdoor living into the inside. You know, a lot of homes had barbecues that were on the outside, on the inside. And it was about, very casual California living. It was like kind of a personifying California lifestyle. And I felt that the original drawings that you had brought us didn't quite capture it. I look at this, and I look at what was there, and I actually think you did capture it. I think you were very successful in creating the philosophy that Cliff May was trying to espouse of bringing the outside in, very casual, relaxed kind of lifestyle. I can see it in the styles of the pictures you're trying to achieve here. I think this looks very strange, and I think your approach is very appropriate to that. The other thing that I find deeply concerning is when we look at this aerial photograph, and the thing that our board is constantly looking at is size, bulk, and scale, and neighborhood compatibility. Like a neighborhood creates a context of how the styles of the architecture works together and how they fit together. And I see this structure here, number 7, and it completely stands out as not appropriate to the context of the neighborhood. In fact, I would assert that if that was before us, I question why we would even approve it. However, it's already been built. And so when I look at the neighborhood and how it stands now, I think what they've done, what they've designed, and in keeping with the style of the architecture, I also believe you've achieved a look of not having it be a remodel. It actually looks like a whole structure. And the other thing I want to underline and really acknowledge is your balconies, your upstairs balconies. They don't look like party balconies. They actually complement the space that they're attached to, the bedroom. So it's actually improving the interior space of the bedroom. And they're not meant to be some kind of party balcony, for kids or whatever. So I think I can totally support this project. I think it's well within the guidelines of this neighborhood.
Okay, other comments?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I agree with my compatriot here to my right. I think that this is really not a huge addition. It's very modest, and it's. I think you did a very good job of it this time around, I think that the addition of a third olive tree might really be a good idea in the area that you saw. Sure. So that then, right now where they're positioned, they're going to hide half of that addition from the cul-de-sac. The third one will probably take care of the whole thing, so that you won't really see it from the cul-de-sac. I think our fearless leader, Fred, has pointed out that any windows that are looking into any neighbor are a good 70 feet away. I mean, also screened by ficus trees and everything. So they're well within our guidelines as far as privacy goes. And that's what we have to look at. Is like, if this was, if they had they were right on their 6-foot setback, and so were you, we would definitely be extremely concerned about that. But that's not the case here. You're talking about a lot of room between that addition and the neighbor. So I, too, can support the project. I think you did a real good job this time around to capture Cliff May.
Other comments?
I'd like to say that this is a really difficult one. We've all looked at the site. We've all looked at the different iterations of what might be able to do, but I kind of agree with my two colleagues. However, I do have a few of my own concerns, such as the impact driving up the street and how this is going to appear in the neighborhood. And I think one of those is based on so much glass, with now the proposal for the glass garage doors, correct? And also all the new higher up windows, that's a lot of glass, and it changes the neighborhood at night. So I like the direction, but I'm not 100% there yet.
Okay, other comments?
I like the direction you're going in. I really don't like the walls and the gate. I mean, you're hiding Cliff May behind a wall. You're hiding Cliff May behind a wall. And you say this wall is existing here?
Yeah, it's existing up to here.
Up to this point right here. And you're going to add the gate with this wall to the property line.
This should just be landscape, and this is what we're adding right there.
Oh, you're not adding this gate to this wall.
That starts the hedge. Yeah, that's oblique right there.
You're looking at an oblique angle.
It's a weird angle. You want to see it in the site plan?
Okay, got it. Okay, I understand. Okay.
And if you If you try to translate what's shown on the landscape plan, I believe what you're going to see.
You're going to see a tree right here, right on the line, right here and there, and probably another one up there. We put a three. If we put three in there.
I think what you see here, and Denise is suggesting another
put
one.
another tree there. Yeah.
That's a scale. That's 16 feet. I just drew.
He said they were
Here is-
25. Yeah.
Here is a human person scale. Okay. And if these do indeed grow to be 25 feet, you said?
Mm-hmm.
You see how big those get?
More, eventually.
Yeah, those are gonna. That's 25 feet.
I think it matches. I mean, there's some.
And over here you have a hedge. There you have a
It's
a
14.
ficus that's. Whoops! I didn't draw it at right scale. Hold on. 14 feet. There's 14 feet. Okay. So there's 14 feet here.
I like the direction it's going. I like, I think the idea of adding another olive tree would soften for a long time, soften the look of that second story.
the addition.
That most everybody doesn't like. And I don't think that there is any privacy problems here.
Okay. Other comments?
I agree with what everyone said. I can be in support of it. And I think you mentioned that you reduced the amount of glazing overall, and that the wall and gate will be hiding the garage glass. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. I think I can concur with most of what everyone else has said. I think that we asked you to go in a direction of Cliff May, and I think I did a little sketch when you were here about how Cliff May, on occasions where he did add a second floor on occasions, he tucked it down into the roof, and you've kind of done that at this point. So I think that element works, and the fact that the windows are placed in such a way that it really avoids privacy issues. When you do come back for your next review, I'm going to be very interested in the material of this window. I think that the plan clearly indicates that the privacy views have been addressed. The City Council, and I think I've said this before, has instructed us that we are not required to guarantee a view out of anyone's window, either from the applicant or from adjoining properties. We do, and under our guidelines, try to really look at the issues of privacy, particularly as Ms. Woolery pointed out, when we have properties that have a property line and we've got 10 or 6 feet between setbacks, and we've got a home that's like this, and we've got a second floor up here, and we've got windows. We run into that quite often. That's of considerable concern, but when we have windows that are 70 and 80 feet apart, in my view, that's of way less concern. And particularly how these houses are oriented to each other. They're not like we find in many houses in other parts of towns where the houses kind of line up in a row. So I think that's pretty clear. The only thing that concerns me is the fence and the gate issue. And just because of the nature of that street, most of the homes in that street don't have fences and gates out front. So that's kind of a character issue in my view of the street, in the nature of the street. I would like to see a study without the gate and the wall there. Maybe some landscaping. But certainly if that goes away, then I'd really be concerned about having glass garage doors. Because at night, those are just lanterns straight down the street. And so that's the one area that I guess I'm not totally satisfied yet. And then obviously I'm going to be interested in location of exterior lighting, color, details, downspouts, that kind of stuff as you move forward. But I think in general, I can I can endorse an action that would give this project design approval at this point. So, having said that, the chair looks for further comments.
Another comment. Again, when you delineate this and bring it back to us, put everything on it. Downspouts, roof overhangs, all the everything, so we can see what it actually looks like. This is still a pretty picture, and it doesn't really reflect what it's going to look like.
Yeah, that's usually very helpful. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I'm glad that you brought up, again, the garage doors, because I do have a strong concern about that. It seems like we're planting a lot of trees to cover up this or cover up that, and I'd really like to see you study a different material for the door, so when you drive up the street, it's not so bright at night. And also, it does set a precedent. If it goes there, then it'll come on back to us soon enough. So I'd also like to see the deck, how I know it's kind of sunk in there, but I don't quite have a concept of what the material is, if it's just the same as the house, the same material in the deck, or is there a railing, or
There's a what is that, a cable rail? A
cable railing? What
here.
color is it?
Cable railing here. He's got to bring his colors in. He hasn't got
Okay.
colors yet.
Yeah, I'd like
There's
to
a cable.
see all that.
The deck sits in here. So if you put, you scale 6-foot person, that's a 6-foot person, if I'm doing this correctly, inside here. So see how that deck is tucked into the roof. So the roof is hiding a portion of that deck, and then this deck is way down. That's another.
And I'd like to
50
see the
feet.
relationship. I know that it's far away from the neighbor, but
They're here. Okay, the neighbor is over here.
They're 70 and 80 feet away
There's
from
80
them.
feet
I'd just
between
like
here and
it
the
to
neighbor.
be clear so they understand it too.
There's 60, 70, where am I at?
Section showing, if you want to see it.
80 feet. There's the neighbor over here. I don't know where the elevations are here.
About the same.
Charles, do you want to see
We have
the
a section of this right here.
They do have a section.
That's this.
Okay.
Oh, it's down. It's actually
So
down.
The roof is actually
what's
providing a
going
lot
on
of
there?
privacy for that.
Okay. So line of sight is here.
At that corner.
So if they're looking over that corner, looking over the roof, they can't see that house. They can't see that. There's no way to see that. This edge
And
of
what
the roof
about
blocks it.
them looking up? What are they going to see?
They see above that line, so all they're going to see is that roof. See, there's the line.
And this is a rail material? Or
That's
what
a
is
roof
that?
over the
Oh,
garage.
that's the roof.
That's the roof. See, the roof is doing this, okay? And the deck is carved
under.
into there, okay? So somebody standing here can't see down over this edge of this deck, over this edge of this roof, down into this house, which is actually down. It's almost, well, it's actually more than 6 feet. It's more than 6 feet, is it not? If I scale this right?
3/4 inch, 6
It's like
feet.
8 feet.
Okay, yeah, I kind of understand.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing no further comments, the chair would request a motion. The applicant is requesting project design approval. We could give it project design approval with comments. We could not give it project design approval. And direction for the applicant to return with comments. Those are probably the two general approaches. So the chair would look for a motion.
I move to give this project design approval with the following conditions to return to the full board with the following conditions that, again. I move to give this project design approval to return to the full board with the following conditions to be met, which is to please look at an alternative to the gate at the driveway and the wall and the glass garage door. To put another olive tree in the front at an area that to be determined by the landscape architect. Let me think. I think that was it, to bring us a color board, to bring us plans that show downspouts and all the other details that will be necessary to further you on down the road to final approval. Anything under?
I'm going to suggest to the maker of the motion
Yes.
that you include in the motion that the board did discuss and review the issues of privacy
Yes.
between neighboring properties and found no clear evidence of any major conflict.
I would like to add that to my motion.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion? Okay. Is there further discussion? Just so the audience understands, I appreciate the fact that the owners made an effort to contact you for a meeting. That was an appropriate approach. The drawings are not completed. The drawings don't get done until this project gets final approval. That's still a whole other separate step away. So any attempt by the neighbors to contact you is appropriate, and given the example that we just heard about, we have another project that has probably 30 people very concerned about. They made an attempt, the applicant made an attempt, and apparently there was a meeting held last week within 5 days' notice. 20 people showed up. So we do know that that process can happen. So I would encourage the neighbors to please embrace that opportunity, should it be presented again by the owners. One of the things that happens here is that we're working on guidelines right now. And as we move through this process, this board is now, I believe, Denise has been on here since the beginning.
7 years
old.
We're going on 8 years.
Going on 8 years old. What happens, when this board was set up, there was a set of guidelines. And generally, in the bureaucratic world of the city process, things start out in life as guidelines. And if they prove to be unsuccessful, sometimes council will then direct those guidelines to be mandatory. And if we move forward, not only with this neighborhood, but other neighborhoods, where we have folks that don't find a way to meet with each other, we may be in a position where later on council will say those requirements are mandatory. And then that will force a whole lot of folks to do things that perhaps they're going to be very uncomfortable with. So I would encourage the neighbors to take the opportunity to have the conversation. I think you got an explanation of the applicant's circumstances of trying to communicate between their home in New York and out here, et cetera. So I think there needs to be a little give and take here, and I would encourage you to continue to try to have that dialogue. This project will do 2 actions. There is a motion on the floor today to give this project design approval. If that action is approved, there is a 10-day appeal period. If anyone wishes to appeal, either the owner or the neighbors, that appeal goes directly to the city council. That's the governing board. City council action is final. And I've been on this board for 6 years, and there's only been one time where the council went against our recommendation. So I'd think very carefully about that process. There will be another opportunity for review and an appeal process at the point in which this project will come for what we call final design approval. That's final design approval of the complete set of drawings, which includes full colors, light fixtures, all the details, landscaping plan, etc. That's a very thick document, much more than the sheets you see here today. So there'll be another opportunity for the neighbors to step forward and make comments, but I would encourage the neighbors to please take the opportunity to engage with the applicant as you move through this process. I think that when we found that it does occur, and it has occurred on many other projects, at the end of the day, we get a project that's acceptable to the neighborhood, acceptable to the applicant, and certainly acceptable to the immediate adjacent neighbors that are affected. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. With that, that's my final comment. Any further comments before we act on the motion? Everyone understand the motion on the floor?
Mr. Chair, I would like
Yes.
permission to amend the motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I read this first. The board has reviewed the proposed project, and compatibility analysis criteria have been generally met for this project. And as follows, the board has positive comments regarding consistency in appearance, neighborhood compatibility, quality of materials and architecture, and follows good neighbor guidelines.
Okay, that's an amendment to the motion. Did the seconder agree to the amendment?
Who seconded?
Lisa. Do you agree to the amendment? Okay. With that, that is the motion on the floor. Chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here. This does, in fact, have a 10-day appeal period. All right, let's move to 704, item number 4. Where will this?
Number 4, yep.
704 San Roque Road. This is a new project, so while they're coming up, I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal for a second-story addition of 798 square feet to an existing 1,759 square foot, one-story, single-family residence. The proposal will also include a new front deck with steps down. Excuse me. Have that door shut. Thank you. 1,759 square foot, one-story, single-family residence. The proposal will also include a new front deck with steps down to the driveway. Proposed total of 2,570 square foot on a 14,778 square foot lot is 60% of the maximum allowable floor-to-lot area ratio. We can take any action we feel is sufficient if the proper information is provided. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Smith. I'm here on behalf of my mother-in-law, Myrna Smith, who is the builder and owner. So we are looking. Oh, should I jump in?
Yes. Please go ahead and share with us what you're doing.
Okay, great. So we are looking at building a second floor addition, as you said, with patio roof deck. And we're on San Roque Road, back here on a flag lot along the creek, just below Foothill Road.
Sorry.
First time. Okay, so here, let's see, we're looking at the west elevation and east elevation. Don't believe solar access is a problem on either side of the property. Here is the existing site plan showing the layout of the home. And here's our proposed site plan. So here's where we're going up for the second floor addition with a deck continuing out over the rest of the house. And here we'll be taking out a linen closet on the first floor and having our interior access up to the second floor. So that's the only change on the first floor. And here's our proposed second floor. A nice large master suite. Here's where the stairs come up from outside with the deck continuing out here. We'd like to add we have a gas fireplace downstairs. We'd like to add another gas fireplace upstairs for outdoor. And again, here's the existing floor plan and our proposed roof plan here, showing the second floor addition and the deck. Okay, and again, the existing first floor, showing the staircase coming up for access. Okay, and so at the bottom here, you see the existing south elevation and then our proposed new elevation. So here we have the addition and the new deck. So we'd be taking out this part of the roof. And here's our existing north elevation and our proposed new. And our east and west existing and proposed new elevations here. I believe that's it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any written correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
Chair is going to then close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Are the shutters smaller like that, or is that just a design drafting thing?
They are pretty small. They are I believe they're drawn just how they are on the bottom floor already, so we were matching on the top.
You have
floor.
photographs?
Do you have existing
Oh,
photographs?
here we go. Great.
Let's put them on the screen. So, get the ones that show the house. There we go. Order. There we go. There's the shutters there.
Okay.
So I think the shutters are in relationship to the size of the window.
Yeah.
You can kind of see on this one where it's sitting on the sill there.
Okay, other questions?
Yes, can you tell me what the size of the deck is?
Oh, yeah. 1,100 square feet.
1,100?
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
Right now, yeah, I have a question. Right now, you have a hip roof on the. Isn't there a hip roof on the house? I'm assuming. I went out there and looked at it. And
Let's go back. I believe that you're correct. But let's go back. Yeah, it's hip. All the hips.
and you're changing. It's not a hip roof now. I mean, what you're proposing is not a hip roof.
Well, it is and it isn't. Right here.
If you look at the other. Sorry, other elevation.
Yeah, it's hip here.
Okay. Sorry, that just doesn't compute.
Let's see.
It's not the same.
Yeah. Let's just check something. That's about 12 feet. Oh, wait, excuse me.
That's 8.
It's a quarter inch, so that's about 6 feet. So go to the roof plan. The roof plan is drawn at 1 inch equals 10. Hold on. And that shows it to be 15 feet. So the drawings don't.
They don't match.
Okay.
And I have another question. Who just, I mean, it's not required, but who prepared the drawings?
An architect friend of ours.
Can you put his name?
He can't take on the job, so unfortunately, we're going to take it over from here.
Okay. That's all right. That's fine.
Okay, other questions? Okay, one of the questions that we're going to have, which I don't see here, is I'm assuming the finished floor line is close to the bottom of that door threshold.
Right.
So that's the finished floor line. So it appears that the finished floor line of the second floor is 9 feet up. If that line is in fact that line at the threshold of those doors. So that's 9 feet. And it appears the plate height might be at 8 feet, but it probably isn't, given the fact that to get a beam to come, a rafter to come down and do what you've drawn here, that's actually looks to be like 9 feet. So that could be 9 feet, but we don't know for sure because the drawings don't quite jive. And this appears to be, these appear to be vertical railings outside that, stuck onto the surface of the header of that floor, because that's the 1 foot, more or less 12 inches of structural to hold this floor up. Okay, and those doors don't appear to be standard 6'8" doors. They look more like 6'10", but it says 6'8", but they're not drawn that way. Okay.
Verticals look like they're sitting at the ends of the end of the rafters.
Yeah, they're at the end of the rafters. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, what's on sheet A42?
A42.
Just a question what this thing is.
What's that? This part where you're at?
Oh, that's the existing flue that we would enclose and go up a little bit higher.
There's a flue.
Separate.
What is that flue? Is that a heater flue?
It's for the fireplace, as far as I know.
Let's go back and look at this floor plan. Okay, floor plan. Existing fireplace. That's the one we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. That's the only one.
Two fireplaces there.
That might be a mistake. I'm not
That's a
sure.
mistake.
Can an Adams family be there?
Right.
So there's a flue for here for some reason.
Got it.
I don't know why. Okay. Other questions?
You're going to have what kind of party are you going to have on the deck?
No big parties planned, just some nice outdoor space.
1,100 square feet?
Pass down
It's down by the creek. There's lots of beautiful trees and mountain view, so we'd really like to enjoy.
A couple hours ago.
Oh, great. So we really enjoyed the back patio and like to have the upstairs deck as well.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, let's go to comments.
Mr. Chair, actually, I have a question. I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that one of the plan check corrections was to make sure that there was adequate interior access. I just want to make sure that was clear on the plans.
Interior access, in what way?
From the top floor to the bottom floor, because in the previous set of plans it
Okay.
sort of alluded to.
Let's kind of double check that. So you're taking out that,
Where's that flue?
and there's a staircase. So that staircase goes up. There's also,
Sewer.
oh, here's what.
Because there
here's
was
what
external access
Yeah,
as well.
here's what I was confused about. That's
Can't get up
see,
that stairway.
If you look at this staircase here, I don't know what that staircase is doing, but the secret to that is over here. Okay, so supposedly there's going to be a staircase going up. What you'd see is a landing here. Okay, what you'd see is a landing, then it turns and goes up. I think that's kind of what's going on over here, but it isn't drawn like that. And typically what's going to happen, if this top of the landing lines with that point right there, then this guy is out. Roughly 7 feet or so. So that means this into steps is here. So there's a set of treads and risers here, and then it's turning and coming down to a set of. So it's just not drawn correctly.
Okay. So here there's a walkway and kind of garden area.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and so that's not on the drawing. So that's why it's confusing.
okay.
All right. Does that answer
My
your question?
No, I'm just looking at the plan check corrections, and it says, sorry. Sorry, I'll find it and
Okay.
come back.
So, Joe, so just we're all clear, on the second, this is proposed second floor plan. This is why it's confusing. They're mixing the first floor and the second floor drawing together. So the deck is virtually, as I'm reading this drawing, this whole entire area.
Yes.
Okay, so the whole first floor roof has become a deck. Okay. All right.
Okay, so I found what
Yes.
the plan check comments. So it says the proposed floor plan configuration did not meet zoning as it is two separate units without proper interior access. So revise existing floor plan to show proper interior access between the existing and proposed second floor addition. Additionally, with the proposed new exterior staircase providing separate exterior access and the large office/desk area, which could easily be illegally converted into a kitchen, there exists a potential for an illegal residential unit, which is not allowed per zoning. So I just wanted to make sure that there's
I
clarification.
see
of
what's going on
drawings
here.
for-
Yeah, okay. Yeah, what's going on here is you've got a drawing that, irregardless of how you or your mother may be
Mother-in-law.
using this home, some subsequent owner could very easily make this into a second rentable unit.
Right.
And that's not going to fly. So I think when you come back, you're going to need to demonstrate that that this can't become another rental unit.
Okay.
So you either do that by making it completely accessible from the interior to the upside. I think it's, in most cases, we find it very difficult when we see these exterior staircases that allow somebody to come up here outside of using the house, because that automatically makes it look and walk and talk like a rental unit. So that you're going to need to probably deal with. The other thing, before everyone else makes your comments, I would encourage you to, yes, if you don't have an architect on this project, you certainly need to get someone that can draw the drawings properly you can see the confusion it presents when things are incorrectly drawn. So, for instance, one of the things that is disconcerting, I'll find it here, is your roof plan probably is relatively correct, but your elevations aren't, because if your roof plan, this is what you'd see. You're not going to see that. This is what you're going to see. Okay, so those really have to reflect that. On the other side, the other issue is here, one of the things the board really looks at is the relationship of the first floor to the second floor. And typically we see about an 8-foot plate height. And what's happening there is when you build that second floor, this is a 6-foot person, and that's an 8-foot high wall. The studs come up like that. There's a double header on that plate, and that is where your rafters are set. That mark is generally 8 feet, although this board on occasion has asked folks to lower that down to 7 feet or 7 foot 6 inches, because what that does is takes the bulk of the house and lowers it down. So that needs to be drawn. You need to have sections.
Okay.
So when you talk to whomever you're going to hire to help you draw this, you've got to have building sections through this so that we can understand how that second floor is going to get added.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then the other part of that is if you have things that engage the site plan out here, then it needs to reflect what's happening on the ground, because one of the things that this board will be looking at is to whether or not they're going to require you to have some landscaping done on this project. So one of the things when you come back that you're going to need to share with us is what part of the landscaping are you willing to hold on to or want to hold on to, and what part of the landscaping needs to be changed because you're affecting how the building hits the ground. Because this is mostly a second floor addition, you may not have much landscaping, but you certainly would have some changes in landscaping if you have anything that hits the ground where it affects the landscaping there.
Right.
So that's really important. The other thing that's important on this piece of property is to make sure you photograph what the fences are. Because this is an interior property off of a private easement, the board's going to want to see how this project relates to the other homes. There's a home, you were out there this morning, I was out there on Friday, there's another home right here.
Right.
And what we're going to want to see is what's the relationship of windows and access looking into this house. So you may have to spend some time and money to get this house on a survey. You may have that already, maybe on this other sheet. Yeah, well, it's here in some way. Yeah, there it is. So we're going to, we're going to want to understand windows here as it relate to windows you're proposing over here.
Okay.
And if you were here a few minutes ago, you probably saw us spend a great deal of time concerned about what people see into each other's properties.
Right.
Okay? So that's going to be pretty important. I have other comments, but I'm going to stop and let other members proceed.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, my comment is, the drawings need to be a lot more developed. They're kind of hard for me to understand. I could say, I think the roof deck is way too large. I couldn't support a deck that big. So I think you really need to study reducing that considerably. I also think it's a waterproofing nightmare to have the entire upstairs deck over your living room like that. So I think that's a...
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Please don't.
And again.
I missed that.
Mine has a female voice.
Anyway, so that's my only comment. Also, the roof, the shutters look a little strange, but if they're existing. But I think what Fred touched on was very accurate. It's someone who can really draw it accurately and has a little more understanding and more photographs. That would be very helpful.
Okay.
If it's drawn accurately, then we'll probably have some comments after it's drawn accurately, but we can't tell without it drawn accurately because it doesn't even look like your elevations don't look like your floor plans. It just doesn't match.
Understood.
Okay. I think that others are going to say the same thing, but I think we're all going to have a very big problem with the size of that deck.
Okay.
I think that you need to, when we look at decks, We want to see what is usually very helpful if you can share with us what you're going to do on that deck. In other words, if you're going to have a table out there and you're going to have some chairs, then draw it on the deck so we can kind of see how you're using that deck.
Okay.
Given where this house is, given its relationship to the other homes here, because I was out there as Joe was, yes, it does have some wonderful views this way, but it does have some homes here that are going to be quite concerned about what they're going to see. So I would encourage you, if you're going to think about having a deck at all, concentrate the deck in a location that limits the exposure to the other neighbors, but certainly gives you the opportunity to enjoy the views to the mountains and to essentially Santa Barbara East. So you want to do that. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is really look at the relationship of that second floor addition so that it does in fact appear as if it may have been part, if the house originally had been designed with a second floor. And that means, in some cases, maybe tucking that second floor into the roof so that you get shadow line. Typically, if you look at the plate height relationship, you get the windows to tuck right up under the eaves. That helps the scale. That's when we talk about scale in relationship to the human person, to a 6-foot person. And that also helps the bulk. Right now, if we had to take these drawings the way they're presented, in my view, it looks way too bulky.
Okay.
Even though I kind of understand what you're trying to do. The other thing that helps on your floor plan, if you show the relationship of the furnishing, which wall is the bed going to go on, et cetera.
In the second floor?
In the second floor, whatever you're adding new, that typically kind of helps us understand what you're after, because sometimes when we find a house that might look too big, the relationship of the room spaces, sometimes you can still get your room you want, but probably needs to be a little bit smaller. So one of the things that happens is, I'm looking at the right scale now. So right now, that's a little tiny bed. So sometimes folks buy queen size or king size, and those are 7 feet by 7 feet. So you kind of want to show what you're really doing here. You also want to show how that closet works, et cetera. That kind of starts to help us understand, is the house too big just because it's too big, or it's big because you're trying to do several things in there. So I think that would be fairly important.
Okay.
Okay. Other comments?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
The way it's drawn here, you probably couldn't walk under this.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. That's why you need to draw sections through there.
Okay, so existing right now, you come out onto the patio and then there's a step down.
Your patio stops right there.
Oh, no, I meant downstairs, sorry.
Yeah.
Or your deck stops right there.
Right.
That means the deck is at roof height. All of a sudden now your roof is sloping that far all the way down. If you were walking on a patio underneath, you couldn't get underneath that without getting down like this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you need to have sections. Okay.
Better drawings.
All right. So other comments?
Yes, I would.
Yes.
I used to live in San Roque, and it's a charming neighborhood. There's a lot of nice little homes there, and it's an opportunity here to really get someone who's going to design for you a home with some character. I mean, right now these drawings don't really show that, and it's very, like they said, very difficult to follow what's going to be happening here. I also think that one thing that's going to be important is to look at our guidelines, neighborhood guidelines. Any deck that you do have up above needs to be 15 feet away from the property line. Okay. So you want to make sure that that's something that you take care of before you come see us again. And maybe also show us some photos of other two-story homes in the immediate neighborhood so that we can see that there is context for this to even happen in this particular part of San Roque. Pretty sure there is, but yeah, and then come back to us after you find a nice, good architect that can draw some good plans.
Because one of our criteria is we need to make a decision of whether or not what you're proposing is compatible with the neighborhood in general and the immediate neighborhood. And because you're back in off that private driveway, understanding what those other homes look like are really important. So if you get photographs of those, that would be the most important. Okay.
All right.
And to make it clear, it doesn't have to be a licensed architect to be a building designer.
That's true.
Right.
Exactly.
Is there further comments? If not, the chair will look for a motion so that we can give the applicant direction. Yes.
Chair, the Santa Barbara Single Family Design Board would like to continue this project to the full board with the following comments for the applicant: that you study and show us the accessibility to the upstairs level from the interior of the building, that you give us some building sections, to show the adjacent homes to yours and the window locations both on them. We'd like you to study reducing the deck size and look at the placement of the second-story addition and consider following our guidelines on how to maybe snug that down or consider less stacking to reduce the bulk. Let's see. I'm trying to read my notes. Oh, and please show if there is existing landscaping that you'll be retaining or what areas you'll be proposing new landscaping in. Also, if you'd show the furniture in the new addition areas and on the exterior.
Okay, that's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? None. Chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here when you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to item number 5, 940 Alston Road. Yes. He's stepping down. Okay. This is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal to construct a new 5,455 square foot, two-story single-family residence with 1,913 square foot basement, a 440 square foot detached garage on a previously undeveloped site. Proposed site improvements include 891 square feet of decks, a 22-foot by 12-foot swimming pool, spa, and new site landscaping to include removal of one palm tree. Proposed total of 5,455 square feet on a 75,000 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 101% of the guideline maximum floor-to-lot area ratio. We can only make comments today. The applicant must address plan check corrections and comply with Tier 3 stormwater management project requirements. I'm going to have you describe the project, and then I'm going to have staff tell us what the plan check corrections are. But if you'll go ahead and proceed, if you'll introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. My name is Kaz Hefeld, architect.
Chuck Rudd, the owner.
Okay. Welcome.
So, thank you. As the chair noted, we're proposing a new residence on a previously undeveloped lot. However, there was a previous owner and previous applicant in 2012, and they came before the board in February and I believe April of 2012 and presented a project. And my client and I went over those meeting notes and the video. I think 4 of you, of the current members of this board, were actually on the single-family design review at that time. So we really wanted to pay attention to the comments that you had back then, and I'll get into in detail a little bit later of how we address those. For those that aren't familiar with this project site and location, here's Montecito Country Club, the Bird Refuge 101 coming up Hot Springs Road. We get onto Alston, headed towards Santa Barbara. So here's our project site here, and a little bit of an arroyo. So like I said, we haven't been to the site. Some images, just kind of walk you through this, which I hope will help explain the current condition. Image number 1, looking north on the site, kind of see the dense existing oak trees and pittosporum hedges. Alston Road is kind of hidden in here and a couple homes above Alston. Image number 2 is kind of midway up through the site, kind of gives you a closer view of how dense that existing canopy is. Image number 3 is important because it demonstrates this tall grove of eucalyptus, existing eucalyptus here, that kind of conceals our proposed development from the neighbors on this ridgeline on Alston here. Image number 4 is looking back. It kind of gives you a sense of the view that we have here, and that there's a ridge line kind of coming down here. So we really have a framed view, which is exhibited here in 5, which is kind of taken midway up through the site, looking south, kind of over hole 16 and the country club there with the tower. Here's a panoramic from this location, which is a shared driveway. So Alston Road is here, shared driveway coming down. Kind of gives you more than a 180 degree view looking up the driveway. These 3 palm trees are a good landmark in these photos here, these 3 palm trees here. Here's 930 Alston Road, which is, you can see the garage here, a little mansard style. I believe this owner's here today. And image 7, kind of looking up at the hill here. 8, looking down the driveway, a nice mature canopy of oaks. We'll have to limit up a little bit for the fire department access, I assume. And image number 9, looking back at the driveway. So our site plan, and I wanted to present, this is a real, I'm a graphic thinker, and some of you architects, I imagine, landscape architects are graphic thinkers. This is a drawing that I just did early on in the project. In the past, in 2012, when you reviewed this site, the board described it as unique, I believe. I think this will hopefully help everyone kind of understand how difficult and challenging this property is. Here's Alston Road and the shared driveway coming down. The red is our setback from the property line, typical front, interior, rear yard. These orange areas are the geological splays that some of you are familiar with. We're not allowed to build any habitable structures in these areas. This red dash line is a city sewer easement that cuts through the property. The light green is the eucalyptus, pepper tree, anything that's not an oak. This kind of darker green kind of demonstrates how many oak specimens there are on this property. So you can kind of see there's only really 2 areas to really focus a development project in. The previous applicant and owner was in this area, and in the planning resolution that was passed at that time for that applicant, they talked about limiting the amount of oak tree removal, they had a driveway that started here and went 200 feet of paving and grading and retaining wall. So eliminating that driveway. And so when we looked at this site with kind of fresh eyes and hearing all those board's comments, we decided that this wasn't the best location for a proposed development and pushed our proposed development forward, trying to take advantage of the view to the south and the ocean. And I think this demonstrates how constricted we are with this city sewer, this geological setback, and our property setback. So I just wanted to present kind of this color version of the site plan. So just talking specifics about our proposal, shared driveway coming down. We have a single-story, 2-car garage, an entry court. As you probably saw from the rendering on the cover page, we're taking some of the vocabulary of the Spanish colonial architecture and trying to articulate this building. Primarily a single story with a second story here and a little office over here. I did want to point out there's a 30-foot easement for this access easement for 930 Alston coming down here on the shared driveway, but our property line is here. And I've taken a dash line where that 30-foot is, this 30 feet right here from our property line, and we located this house 10 feet away from that easement. And then the second story, we step back an additional 10 feet, which is exhibited here in a site section that's cut through the ridge to demonstrate that as the property comes up, we're stepping our proposed project. We're under the 30-foot height limit. You can see this is pretty valuable real estate in terms of this site is flattening out here to take advantage of that 30 feet, but we're really trying to be cognizant of this neighbor by stepping back again 10 feet from the easement and 10 feet that second floor. So this I have lightly dashed in here just as a representation of the previous applicant. They had that 40 by 40 foot structure here with a 2-story garage and pool in between. And again, that long driveway that came up and creating a motor court with the elimination of the 9 native oak specimens. The only tree that we're planning on removing, and actually is misrepresented here, is this palm tree. So these should be swapped. There's 3 palm trees, existing palm trees here. We'll remove this one. Floor plans in specific. So this is north is up on this plan. Here's our single 2-car garage, entry court. This is an open arcade going to the entry. We have a kind of a master suite, formal dining room, and kind of informal living kitchen with an office and a bedroom over here. These are the exterior stairs going up to a little office here. The interior stairs going up to the second floor. We're going to need to do some cut fill as exhibited in the site section, which we can look at. So there is a mechanical area, basement, and storage and gym below. The rest is crawl space. So again, the second story, here's the office with exterior stairs here, set back from this elevation to break it down a little bit. And then kind of a master suite up here, again, set back from that first floor 10 feet. Elevations, I kind of see the primary elevations of this being the north elevation, which defines that courtyard, and perhaps the west elevation. This home can not necessarily be seen by many of its neighbors at all. I don't know if, Mr. Chair, I know you've been to the site. I don't know if others have.
I think many of us that were here visited the site.
I remember it from before.
We did a group site visit.
Okay.
I recall.
Recently or for the 2012?
For the 2012, but I was over there on Friday.
Okay.
I was there this morning.
So this west elevation is the one that impacts the most immediate neighbor, which is 930 Alston Road. So here's our single-story 2-car garage, that entry court with a low, 40-inch wall, just defining it. And here's that step back for the second floor. As I said, the north elevation, just taking some of that vocabulary that we're all familiar with the local vernacular here, and trying to use that. I think demonstrated a little bit better on the rendering. Just using some of these elements to really break down the massing and scale of this, but at the same time be able to fit in my client's programmatic needs on this site and work with all of the setbacks constraints. So this is the south elevation. There's going to be a lot of solar exposure there, and I think that this north courtyard will be used quite a bit from the protection from that sun.
This is the views.
This is all facing the views towards the ocean.
South towards the golf course.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Are these all decks or?
Yeah.
Those are balconies?
This is a balcony. This is the deck with the stairs going down. And, instead of having a wall all the way across, and to take advantage of these views, I'm proposing that it's a plaster wall, and you interrupt it with some iron pickets and guardrail so that we can see through where we have those views. Otherwise, it's a solid element. Just kind of give it, instead of just one material all the way across.
These are really terraces that go down to the ground. So the level is in here.
Yeah, this is the finished floor, and the deck will be 3/4 of an inch below that, and then these are stairs going down.
On the scale.
Right there.
Over there.
No, that's the engineering scale. That's right. Okay, anything else?
I think that's it. We're done with that.
All right, before we go to questions from the board, do you want to say anything? Okay, before we go to questions and comments of the board, We do have some public speaker slips, and I do have, I forgot to pull it out. I think this, yes, we do have one, what appears to be an email regarding this site. And I think that's it. Did we have more than just this one communication?
There should be just the one.
Just the one? Okay. And this is from... Okay. So I'll cover that after we have our public speakers. We have two public speakers. You have 2 minutes to address the board, and you can come up and use this chair and that microphone. So we have Marcia Byers. And Jill, can you come in, please? Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I am Marcia Byers, and I live at 1011 Alston Road, which is actually next door to this piece of property. And I'm really glad that the first building was not pursued at this point, but, you know, everything's open. The first in 2012, because I did speak at that meeting as well. But my point is I wanted to tell you that I am on the other side of those, what he described as tall eucalyptus trees.
Right here. This is your house.
Okay.
Right. So these eucalyptus trees right there.
And the other thing is that we have an easement for that property, a sewer easement for the property that you pointed out. So I'm here really, I just want to know what's going on. I don't have anything other than just to let you know that I am that neighbor.
Okay.
And I'm anxious to see how things go.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Carrie Moriarty. Welcome.
Well, hello there. My name is Carrie Moriarty. I'm the adjacent property owner here, along with my wife, Janine. So yeah, we live at 930 Alston Road. So we're probably obviously the most affected by this proposed development. First off, I want to, take my hat off and thank Chuck for being as accommodating as he's been. He's kept us informed of the project all the way through. We did meet with him 3 or 4 weeks ago to go over the site location and the building envelope. We were generally okay with that. We just got the plans last week, so we haven't had a chance to fully vet them and digest it, but we did get that. So thanks, Chuck, for being accommodating. We do like the design style. We think it's a very nice design and would be in support of that. Our big problem is the obvious problem is the privacy issue and location of the building site. And first thing, or the obvious thing that jumps out at you is that location right at that corner. And I don't know exactly how close it is to our residents, but definitely makes us very nervous. It's we originally owned that lot. My wife and I, we bought the two properties together, and the reason for buying that lot was to preserve the seclusion and the privacy of our house. Unfortunately, we lost that lot, during the recession time. So, it was kind of a best laid plan situation. Chuck was fortunate enough to pick up the property and, wants to do his dream home, and we appreciate that, and we're for that. We're fine. We just feel that the property is quite large. We understand the physical and the geotechnical constraints to the property, i.e. the slopes and the fault splays. But we urge the board to kind of look at a couple alternatives on placement of the property, just to preserve our property, our privacy rights. And our other concern is the location of the driveway. We want to make sure that that is set up high enough on that entrance road that it doesn't disturb coming into our property. One thing I notice right off is that seems to be the larger profile is on the east side of our property, and maybe just coming off the top of head looking at this is maybe put the profile on the more on the east side, I said, instead on the west side, so where that two-story component is, move that over towards the sloping section of the site parcel there.
Thank you. You're 2 minutes.
Oh, and the last comment is just I'd like to see if we could get some story poles out there and really help us out and get a better visual of the project.
We'll address story polls as we go through the process, but before you leave, I do want to ask you one question.
Sure.
I was out there again this week. This is your home right here, and that's the current driveway?
Let's see, where are we
Right here.
Okay,
That's
Alston Road.
You're
Where's
coming
the-
down the road there.
right here.
Okay.
Yes, that's it right there.
So the best I could tell, this is a garage on that element?
Yes.
On that side. So there's windows in that garage, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But there aren't living spaces in there?
No.
So all your living spaces are kind of on this side of your house?
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But one thing I want to interject is that we plan, since it is a small residence, it's about 2,200 square feet.
Yes.
Our plan is to add a second level there
Okay.
in time. And once again, if you're located in this area here, you might be able to look right into those potential windows that we plan to add down the future.
We'll be looking at all that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address this project? Did you all get a chance to read this memo that came earlier? Essentially, the writer is saying the project is too large, the house is too large, and would prefer a one-story, I'm paraphrasing, one-story home. Okay, I'm going to pass that over to Katie, and we're going to go back to Katie. Can you share with us what it says plan check corrections? What was that about?
Right, there was just some concerns that zoning staff had in the plan checks. One being, let's see, the front setback. It appears the front setback may be shown incorrectly, as it may include a portion of the public right-of-way. Revise the site plan to show the complete dimensions of the public right-of-way, paved portion of Alston Road, and show the required 30-foot front setback from the edge of the public right-of-way. We have the set that Michelle has noted on here. I don't know if that might be more helpful.
Yeah,
to swap.
that's probably, that kind of lets us know what that is. Okay, so, so up here, there's an issue with how far this comes back.
So you want to know if these are existing or
Yeah.
proposed? This is all existing.
Okay. Curb, et cetera, 10-foot interior setback.
So another comment was the decks encroach into the 10-foot interior setback
Okay.
per the municipal code section 2887060B.1. The decks that are no more than 10 inches height above existing grade may encroach into any setback. Specify the location of the proposed deck encroachment on the appropriate elevations. Provide site sections at this location and show the property line, the setback, existing grade, and the max height of the proposed deck encroachment within the setback. If it exceeds 10 inches in height, then remove the portions of the deck and show compliance with the required setback.
Okay, and that's the open yard
Yeah,
space?
open yard I showed in the front yard, and she wants me to show it
In
in
the
the rear.
backyard?
Yeah.
And did they say anything about this staircase that's overlaying the, what is this? Oh, this fault.
Yeah, this clay fault.
Same thing with the garage.
We're working with a geotech right now. This was confirmed, was located by Earth Systems, civil engineering out outside of Ventura. We're contracted with them and working with them just to reconfirm the location of this. We have verified you can put non-habitable structures, garages, stair, and pool in those setbacks.
Okay. So you're going to provide us with a letter or something?
Yes.
A report of some sort? Okay. Label, provide larger scale. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, let's go to questions then from the board.
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
So you had mentioned early on about the reason that that it was about the trees that you moved the house down to this new location from where originally up in here, where there seemed to
It's
be
right here.
a lot less easements. That it was something about oaks and that you were not allowed to remove some of these, or
No, in the planning commission resolution, so there was a tentative building parcel map. When this, in 1985, they subdivision, they created this lot. And they had a tentative building map, and I don't think they had these geological setbacks mapped. So the previous applicant applied and had the planning commission approve the location of this two-story garage and this house, but I think deferred, the way I understood it, kind of deferred back to the Single Family Design Review Board about what they would and wouldn't accept. But one of the kind of statutes of that limitation, or the planning commission approval, was to minimize the removal of oak trees.
Oak trees, minimize, right.
Minimize, and then simultaneously they wanted to minimize the driveway, which started here and had a gate and came all the way back here, and they created a motor court.
Because as I recall from the site visit we did back then, this is quite steep here, so you can't necessarily cut down in here.
You can't, correct.
It drops
Right.
really dramatically until you get to about right here.
Unless you came in from up here and dropped at an angle, perhaps. No, still can't.
We have worked
Really,
with the fire
yeah,
department.
it's really steep.
Really steep.
There's no way. So the only way to build here, you would have to enter down here and come
come all
up
the
this
way back.
direction, which could possibly, well, if you came up in here, I suppose you would miss the oaks. But here, I'm just looking at most of these trees are not oaks in here. There's a couple. There's that and that.
Yeah, oak.
Yeah.
Those are some beautiful trees.
Yeah, they're beautiful trees. I get you. I'm just looking to see, if there's another option for you. That
One of the, as you recall, Denise, one of the problems that we all discussed when it was here in the previous time, when the house was, where's that footprint? Right here.
Right here.
Right here. It was easily visible to that house up here.
Right.
And so that was part of our struggle, because of the size, scale, and bulk of what they were presenting at the time, was really giving us some concern about what was being seen. Now this whole thing has moved way beyond the eucalyptus trees and way down.
Yeah. So now it becomes an issue for this
house.
Yeah, I'm just, okay.
So right now, those two closest points appear to be about 42 feet apart. That corner, this corner to that corner.
I was just thinking that, with of course you want to be oriented toward the view, but here with a driveway that came in and kind of came up around, I don't know. It just seems to me that
really steep down there, though.
It drops. This is all dropping.
Yeah.
We're just, once we introduce the driveway to get here, we're just creating a lot of grading.
A lot of grading.
A lot of grading.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Other
Just wanted to
questions?
See the options.
Anyone questions?
Not many.
Let's see, I just want to go back, make sure I understand the plan. So I get all of these are basically big terraces that drop off to the site. You can call them decks, I guess, if one wants to, but essentially they're 4 feet, 7 feet, and then there's a staircase. And then over on the side, over here, this is the windows in the basement off the basement level gym.
Correct.
And
one exterior access for code reasons.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to reserve that for a comment. This is the second floor office.
Correct.
That's only accessible from the outside.
From these stairs going up. And then
So my question, Katie, did zoning have any comment about the fact that this isolated little office had just an exterior staircase?
Michelle did have comments on that.
Sorry, let me just.
It says, office is okay. It is attached to the main building and under 500 square feet. That's the only comment.
So
She
they
didn't,
did look at that. Okay.
she didn't make comment about the stairs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those were basically my questions. Other questions? If not, let's go to comments. We can't really take any action on this project today until some of those other things are sorted out, but we can give the applicant comments and direction. So comments. Lisa?
Looks like you're going in a positive direction, and you're very constrained by the site. So I'm just curious what my fellow board members are thinking about size, scale, and bulk. 101 is awfully big, according to our guidelines.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, yeah, that's my comment. I think the style and design is good, but I think it needs to be, we need to focus on aiming for 85%, and look at the decking in the back so that you're, so I can find my microphone. I've been very entertaining tonight. Find your, the back deck, how it intrudes into the setback lines, reduce that, but I also think you need to focus on getting it to the 85% FAR in this particular area of the neighborhood where the location is. It seems to be a little too large.
Other comments?
I agree. I agree with what's been said so far as the size, bulk, and scale. I think it's really, really big. Also, on the south elevation on A3, what I'm finding rather difficult is the 11 feet of just this white wall.
What were you looking at?
South elevation, right there.
And how it's not really, this house isn't taking advantage of the lay of the land, that it's not stepping down in any way. And I think that it would be such a better thing to do in this particular location is to just keep, have it step down instead of have this giant piece, because that's going to be something that from down below, that may really be visible the way this is sticking up out of the ground, And,
see how this is on their guidelines, how it kind of takes advantage of the slope of the...
Steps down.
You can see the scale.
Yeah,
That's a 6-foot person relationship.
a little more sensitivity to the site in that sense. And I think that also shrinking it down is going to give you a lot more opportunity to do that.
Other comments?
Turn the one way back.
Floor plan?
Yeah, floor plan. That's it. Okay. Great for finding things that look faulty to me. These two walls are right on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you stepped the second floor back.
That's the
basement.
First plan.
Sorry.
Other comments?
Well, I agree with everything everybody said. But speaking of the basement, are you getting extra square footage that's not calculated into, or is that not an issue here?
According to the code, the basement doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Yeah. So I agree that the house is too big.
I'm not so sure about that.
Half of it's above ground as far as I can see here in the
there's
south
also
elevation.
a comment, Fred, if you look on the site plan, they did make a comment about the FARs. I'm not sure what you want to...
Let me go to the FAR section 28.15. Special rules, basements and cellars. The net floor area calculation for a basement and cellar shall be reduced by 50%. This is under FAR. If the vertical distance from the grade to the ceiling is 4 feet or less, and 1/2 the length of the perimeter of the basement or cellar. The floor area, basement or cellar shall be excluded from the calculation of net floor area if the vertical distance from the grade to the ceiling is 4 feet or less. So the way I read this is that you have to include 50% of that basement into your FAR. So you need to check that with staff.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, Michelle commented on the FAR, and she said the proposed total of 6,411 square feet is 19%, 119% of the floor lot area ratio. So that's accounting the basement.
That counts the basement. Okay. So
but that's
basically,
not what this says.
That's what she just said. She's
Okay.
correcting what is there. So
with the basement, it's 119.
Because you have to include, by definition, under that section I just read, you have to include 50% of the square footage down here. So that bumps it to 119 versus 101. So I'm going to go to my comments.
Can I address that real quick while it's on the table?
Yes, go ahead.
Michelle is out of town, and I wasn't able to get in touch with her. We read this section of the code in depth, and I've done a 3D model, and we've studied this. So what she's misinterpreting is this is the deck above. So this is all crawl space below. It doesn't daylight here. This is less than 4 feet on this side.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If you could read that, they're going to count 50%. Believe me, I've just gone through this. I have a project that I've had to deal with this, so that's why I'm so familiar with it.
Okay.
So that's just part of your calculation. So I would encourage you, yes, to reduce it. Now, that's not to say, in my view, because of this large site, that I could live with a larger than 85% FAR. We have had very large sites where we have in fact approved projects that are 100% or more on very large sites. We've done that several times in the last few years. So given that, that's lesser concern to me. But what is of concern to me is the location down in this corner. And it's not so much that we're dealing with a current privacy issue, because that's why I was asking about the garage here.
Yeah.
But regardless, this site may be, whether it's the current owner or a future owner, may get developed. So one of the things we have to look at is the long-range character of the neighborhood, and this constitutes some of the neighborhood. So I would look very carefully. First of all, you've got to address these 10-foot thing. The placement of that corner. And one of the things, as you start to look at your square footage, is that if you're in fact able to start squeezing some things down, it starts moving that back. And I've realized that, yes, I think you've moved the second floor back here.
10 feet, yeah.
Yeah, back into something like that. Yeah. So having done, there's two parts to this. So do that exercise. Okay, get that house pushed back a little bit. That gets your FAR reduced. And then, given what you want to do up on that second floor, and what's always very helpful to me is to understand, sometimes we see floor plans and we go, look, if you could just suck it in a couple of feet on each side, boom, you've got significant reduction. And what that starts to help is if one starts to lay out, if you're going to actually use this as a bedroom, is that in fact where you're going to put a king size or queen size bed and a nightstand and so forth, and how you're really going to use, how you're going to use that room with all of these rooms. And you might find that with just a little maneuvering, you can get everything you want here, but just get it squished in. The other thing that you might want to look at, and I think the location of these windows that you're proposing, that's a good approach because they're up high. So in relationship to that other property, one of the things that we see quite often is that we can resolve some of these things by really thinking about where those windows are. So one appears to be in a closet. It's not labeled, whatever that little pocket is there. So yeah, you'd like maybe have a window, but could it be just in Spanish architecture, they just use little squares sometimes, like a foot by a foot. So is that enough light into that closet? Plus gives you head height for hanging clothes or whatever. Same with this. So you might really think about how those windows get played. The other thing that bothers me a little bit about the scale, first of all, the approach is perfectly fine. This is where we should have seen the first applicant, but that's another story. But I think the other thing that when you look at George Washington Smith and some of the other folks that we look at for the the Spanish architecture that we all love.
I used to live in a George Washington Smith house. So.
Yeah. So you understand that second floor, a lot of times what he did at the edges, he dropped everything down to 7.5 feet or 7 feet or 8 feet, and it got the edges because he had vaulted ceilings in the rooms. So you still got that. You got the value of the vault, but you got the outside scale to drop. So I think you've got an opportunity, without changing this approach dramatically, by just dealing with that height there. The other thing that I think would address, and that was why I was quizzing over here you've got, since you're going to have to count the floor space anyway, and here you've got a nice gym, and I can see sitting on my bike in the morning wanting to look out towards those trees. Why couldn't you shave off a little bit of this, put some nice windows in here, okay, and really make that an attractive space? So whether you use it as a gym or a playroom or whatever, it really looks to the outside, and that would then allow you, I hate to go on your drawing, would allow you to do what Joe just showed in our guidelines, to create another area down here where, maybe there is another window here. And that kind of gets to Denise's point about just having this massive piece of white there. That starts to step down into the breaks it up down onto the terrace. So I think more thought needs to be given how these decks are laid out, and some thought down here. But in general, I think this is a good approach. It moves the concerns that we had with the previous application, where that home was way up in here. We've now moved it down into this corner. I think the issue is, and particularly from a landscaping standpoint, how you handle this relationship to that home. So that corner and the entry drive is probably important. So at night, when you're coming home to your house, you're not putting car lights into his house, and he's not putting car lights into your house.
Yeah.
So, that's probably needs a little study. One of the questions I had, there is a barricade fence up here now. Is that something you all put in, or was that there when you bought the property?
I put it in. People are dumping trash out the side.
Oh, my God. You probably need to check with the city about where that is, because it might be in the right-of-way. So you need to kind of worry about that. So I would say you're kind of going in the right direction, but I think there's some tweaking here, and certainly if you can come back and show my colleagues on the board that you made an effort to get that FAR down, I think it's just a matter of really looking at all these spaces and getting, but I think the general approach is good. I think there's a way to get this all to work. I think there's a way to make it work with the adjacent neighbor so that his privacy is assured. But again, as I said in our previous maybe two back, we're not required to guarantee window views. But we are concerned about privacy issues, and we make every effort we can to make sure windows are placed in the right place. But I think if you start looking at those second floor windows in terms of how their relationship to the other, you had a balcony off that second floor bedroom, and you had windows. Maybe in that case you tuck the windows back in. Remember, in Spanish architecture, you get to do that. You get to recess because you can throw the thickness of the walls.
Yeah.
So maybe that helps a little bit. So those are the kind of tricks that you can probably look at.
Okay.
Other comments?
Denise mentioned about the topography, about maybe, was it on this one?
Yeah, that's what I was showing you a few
Okay.
seconds ago.
Yeah, I thought I wanted to.
Pop a window in there, that still reads 3 stories
Right.
on that end to me. And I just really think there's an opportunity there to somehow drop with the topo a little bit,
Yes.
Make sure you're speaking. One of the problems we had with the second floor because of that slope is we were getting into the 30-foot or whatever the max is. We'd be amenable to sliding it away from Carrie's house, but then we're bumping up against a 30-foot. So is there any way to get a little bit of a variance there, or?
Let's go back.
I don't know if that's very
You have to
articulate.
massage plate heights. You can massage a plate height.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to lower your plate
I
height.
think, Denise, one of the challenges they have is because of the terrain of the site.
Yeah, I
On
see
that
that.
corner, that's a problem.
Right, I see that right
So
there.
We started
there's right here.
trying to move it over here away from him.
So, and the other challenge there is if you tried to do what you'd have to make this whole living room drop, which means.
Why not? I mean, it just.
Well, we'd have to get a variance.
Okay, no. There's two things going on. If you make the living room drop, then it gets down to this owner's lifestyle. Okay? For those of us who are getting a little more gray hair, now that I look at my 2-story house, I'm going, now as I get older, I'm going to have to climb a set of stairs to get to my, so you got to think about those things.
Yeah, sure.
So that's part of an issue here. The other issue is it's just this corner. If we had other homes that looked up at that, then I'd have a little more concern, i.e. the other Alston Road project we just looked at a few weeks ago. But we don't. We don't really have any homes that I know of that can really see up into that corner.
Isn't that the view dead to the south there, right? So
Right,
there may be people way down below.
No, they're here.
so
See, there aren't any homes there. See, the house is up here. That corner is right here. So there isn't anything in front of them.
This is a
How about from down below in the city?
This is a ridge. And you can't see it from the city.
You can't see it from the city.
You can't see the site from the city at all. You can't even see it from the golf course.
To articulate that one point, I tried to be sensitive to the topography and, given the client's age and wanting to live here for a long time, we have an existing driveway that sets an existing elevation. And once you get the vertical curb in there to transition from your driveway into your garage, it sets our finished floor essentially to have single-story living. So it really, working backwards from our existing driveway, you end up out here for single-story living.
Well,
Anyway,
you
I
don't
think
really
those
have
are some
single-story
things
living anyway, though. There's a two-story house here. So,
For the future, though.
Oh.
For the future.
Okay. Anyway, I think you've kind of got some of our comments. So what I think would be helpful is if we can put all those comments into a motion so we can give some direction to the applicant. Unless someone else has comments. Who's ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to bring this back to the full board with the following comments. The board appreciates the style of architecture. The board feels that the client to explore reducing the total square footage. The recommendation is 85, but we're not attached to that completely. The board would also like you to explore the deck arrangements, in particular regarding privacy issues with the next door neighbor. Also, adding some kind of decking going off the basement area to mitigate the large massing of the walls on the topography. The board can support the single level, the first floor, understands the sensitivities in terms of the clients needing it not to have a lot of stairs in the interior space. Also, the board suggests exploring designing lower plate heights to also mitigate the bulk of the size of the height of the structure. And that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay. Is there further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Go. Okay, let's go to our, where are we at in our schedule? Last item is 1531 West Valerio Street. And while the applicant's coming forward, I'll read into the record.
Do you want to keep the other sets?
Yes.
Do you want to keep your other sets?
Sure. I'll read into the record the project description. This is for 1531 West Valerio Street. Proposal to construct a new three-story, 2,590 square foot single-family residence with an attached 474 square foot two-car garage and a detached, whoops, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I'm reading the wrong one. And a detached 244 square foot one-car garage on a previously vacant lot. The proposal includes a total of 250 cubic yards of grading, 162 cubic yards of cut, and 27.8 cubic yards of fill under the building, and 167 cubic yards, under the building, and 167 cubic yards of cut, and 52.8 cubic yards of fill on the site. Also proposed is a 1,148 square foot roof decks, 619 square feet of decks at grade, site walls, new driveway, and 2 uncovered parking spaces. The proposed total of 3,310 square feet located on a 74,790 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 61% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratios. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. The project must comply with Planning Commission Resolution number 007-07 and Tier 3 Stormwater Management Plan. Project was last reviewed at the Planning Commission on February 8, 2007. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. Jeffrey Sears. I'm the property owner.
Welcome.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
Hi, I'm Marilyn O'Malley, and I'm Jeff Sears' partner.
Meg West, landscape architect.
David Winetsky, architect.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Could share with us what you're doing, please.
The current site is at the end of, near the end of Valerio Street. The site is accessed off of a private drive that 3 or 4 residences are accessed from. The property backs up against Ellings Park on the western side. Is that on?
Yep, it is.
Okay, good. The there's one change in the project description. Our project description describes about 1,150 square feet of accessible rooftop deck area. We only have 600 square feet of accessible rooftop deck area. There is a existing building permit for the project, and a project was approved a couple of years ago for a project that is about twice the size of the project that we're proposing. Jeff and Marilyn, when they bought the site with a project complete with building permit. Both Jeff and Marilyn felt that the site and the existing oak grove on the northern boundary, as well as the site topography, that the scale of the house that a building permit existed for is simply too large. They're proposing a project which is 52% of that permitted project. This gives you a sense of project scale. Our rectangular masses is our building section. The outlined area was a previously approved project, just to show you both the height difference and also the project massing difference. I'll get into the details a little bit. In looking at the project site, the differences as well are that their project was a little bit lower on the slope, where the site is a little steeper. It resulted in a little bit shorter driveway, although the project massing was a little bit closer to the neighbors. We pulled the project up the hill a little bit. We've maintained an attached two-car garage at the dwelling and a detached one-car garage at the private access road. And we pulled our driveway further up the site so that our driveway access is more in line with the natural topography as we come in parallel to it rather than cutting through it. The other thing is that we have about a third of the total amount of paved area that there was in the prior project, and we have about 10% of the total grading that was in the previous project. Our site lays out, it's surprisingly similar to the project we just looked at on Alston in the site configuration. One of the constricting elements is we have a high-pressure gas line easement that runs right through the center of the site, and so it restricts the placement of the structures. This is the access point off of Valerio Street for the private drive. The conditions of approval from the Planning Commission during the subdivision process required the widening of this private drive, which we've included on our side of the property line. As you come into the property, one parcel is accessed here, and then access to our parcel is here. The drive continues up the hill to a parcel here and continues up further up the hill here. We're about midway up that slope. Our project, in relation to the neighborhood context, Jeff and Marilyn have met with 9 of the 12 neighbors. 3 of the neighbors have not been available, but they left information about how they could reach them and about the project. All the comments neighbors had were positive. They were pleased to see that this project was significantly less large than the previous project. And we've received positive comments about the configuration and the layout on the site. As you come into the site, we've reserved a lower area down below for our stormwater retention area. We come to a one-car garage and a pull-out or fire truck turnaround area, as well as 2 guest parking spaces. Coming up the private drive, we come into the site as far as we can get up the drive to come in and parallel the slope, so that our garage is at the lower end and is a building element that's stepped down the hill. We've tried to respond to the design guidelines in stepping the project down the slope. There's no place where you can see 3-story mass for the width of the building. We have a basement area that's at the garage level is the lowest elevation, and we have a basement area that's right off of the garage for a small workshop and access to the vertical circulation which is an elevator and a winding stair. Two-story elements then first and second floor above that garage elevation are then toward the rear of the property. And what we have done is the only raised outside deck area other than rooftop accessible deck areas is a raised deck area that spans from the building here to grade, primarily to get light and air to the understory down below, and I can show you in sections how that works. The average slope on the overall lot is about 28.5%. And so even with that slope, we've been able to keep our overall downhill run of the total project at about less than 60 feet. This side section shows natural grade and how our building sits relative to that grade. We have a longitudinal section through the project at the point where we have our two-story tower and one-story massing at the side, and you can see our basement area or understory area is completely below the existing natural grade. These are solar envelope studies to show that we're really in good shape relative to shading adjacent neighbor property. These are shots of our 3D model of the project that I'll just walk you through. The red bands are 5-foot differential contours. The green bands are 1 foot apart. This is a view from the lower, as you come into the private drive, this is a view up adjacent to the guest parking area. Up the site, you can see our one-story garage mass stepping down the hill. This is as you come up the drive then and come into the driveway. This is a view up the driveway, our one-story garage mass, our two-story element, which is I can show you in section where it actually touches grade is about 2.5 stories, but it's the stair and central circulation area. You can see the wire railings for our outdoor accessible roof areas and our two-story elements as it steps up the hill. This view then is looking from the neighbors who are on the southern or the northern edge of the property up through the oak grove to the property as it sits on the hill. And this is a view from the uphill side at the property line looking down on the property. You see the one-car garage, detached garage, and guest parking down below. And you can see our raised deck on the northern side, not really visible to any neighbors except the uphill neighbor, which is much further up the hill. And this is a view to show sort of why we have done that, really to get light and air to that understory space down below. I'll walk you quickly through the floor plans and then turn it over to Meg, who can talk about our stormwater management and landscape plans. This is the lower level of the house at the ground level, coming up the drive, coming into the two-car garage, a little back out turnaround area to get forward facing down the hill. We have terraced on the garage side, several levels of terracing. All of our retaining walls on site, except for this portion of the wall in here. This portion is 6 feet tall. Everything else is 3 feet or less. We've accomplished that by doing step terraced walls and to try to reduce the overall mass of retaining walls. From the garage, you come into the central circulation area. This is our 3-story element. And This, from the driveway access, comes up onto this entry terrace, which is above the workshop. At the first level, the entry terrace, come into a central foyer, stairs that provide the vertical circulation, and this first level is our private living space level. We have ground level access immediately out on this side. This is where we have our raised windows below that exterior deck that cantilevers or extends over to touch grade about this point to get light and air to those spaces down below. We have a small raised terrace about 2.5 to 3 feet off the ground at this point, touches ground at this point, really to get from that bedroom access out onto the site. And at the second and upper story, the vertical access point, these are roof areas over the existing structure down below, and those roof areas are accessible, as is this raised deck portion to the south of the property. Those are the access points out to the terraces. I think probably the elevations are useful in seeing the garage, the way it steps down the hill. The elevations down below are for a one-story detached garage structure and terrace, a little bit of retainage of earth to get the 2 parking spaces and adequate space for a fire truck to turn around. This is a section through the site, looking the other direction at the face of the garage and up into the entry terrace. This is the elevation cutting through that upper deck area on the south side. And this is the mass of the building as you're looking at it in elevation. Meg, would you like to?
Okay.
Slide over.
I can just use this mic, yeah? Okay. So as far as the landscape on this particular project, the existing site is an avocado orchard, which has been planted in what was an oak woodland. And the desire of the owners is to restore the oak woodland as much as possible. And I'll just walk through the site very quickly, kind of following the flow of water. You can see that the swale we're proposing here is in this color blue. It follows the existing drainage patterns on the site, meaning that the water is basically moving down the hill towards this existing shared driveway and then out towards Valeria Street. So these improvements here along the side of the shared driveway are part of the improvements that are required. We're proposing a small infiltration basin here and some plantings that are called out in the plant list, mostly a mix of just succulents and natives. And as the water moves up, it goes through our infiltration basin. So we're going counterflow here from the bottom to the top, giving the water a chance to slow down and soak into the soil as much as possible. And moving up the swale, we actually come to a confluence where one side of the water flow comes from the top of the property. Let's see, the kind of the top of the swale is about here. And so one side is coming all the way down this embankment and then curving under the driveway to this confluence near the infiltration basin. And effectively what that does is it captures as much water as it can that's currently flowing off the uphill neighbor and brings it down through this swale into our infiltration basin. And then on the other side, we're doing the same thing, kind of below the site. So what we've done here is actually wrapped this development envelope in a swale that can move the water effectively away from the building as much as possible above it, and then move the water also away from spilling out into the neighbors below as much as possible. So we believe this is the most environmentally friendly and effective stormwater strategy for the site. All of these swales will be planted with a erosion control grass called vetiver, which has been used at City College and some other sites in Montecito. I don't know if the board is familiar with that particular grass.
Yes.
Okay. Denise says yes, so
yes,
she can.
It's in Europe. They use it in Europe all the time.
Yeah, it's very, very massive root system and great for erosion control and just has all these wonderful benefits. The previous project had a lot of concrete swales moving water, since this is such a challenging site for water, and we really wanted to get away from that, and I think we've successfully done that. Okay, so moving away from the grading, I'll just briefly point to the plant list and be happy to answer any questions about that. It's mostly a restoration project on the oak woodland, as well as some ornamental plants just closer to the house and the terraces we've created, and then some fruit trees. Our irrigation plan will be all, very low water use and utilizing gray water as much as possible to water the fruit trees. And of course, erosion control is an important part of this site as well. So I think that's about all I wanted to cover, and I'll turn it back over to David to wrap it up.
I'd like to go back to, I mentioned in my introduction about the downhill run, and I wanted to point that out in our building sections. The guidelines talk about a less than 60-foot downhill run. We've got 55-foot total downhill run for a building. And in addition to that, we've every place we could, we've tried to cut the building into the slope rather than to cut the slope to create flat areas for outdoor terraces or outdoor areas.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have. The photographs, did they make it out? Oh, I was just... Sorry, I should have started with these for orientation, but I'll go through them very quickly. This is the view of the entry of the private drive up into the site. And moving up the private drive, this is the area on one side of the private drive. We're talking about developing our site improvements and stormwater management for the new private drive on this side. This is the edge of the property with the green fencing, and as you're coming up the private drive, you're then moving up the hill. This is a view then up onto the site in the building area, which is in this area. This is a view back to, this is a view looking across to where the guest parking pad is. There's a natural, more flat part of the site where we'll create the guest parking and garage area. This is a view of the site overall from the guest parking area, and where it shows where the guest parking and detached garage would be. This is looking as you come up the private drive and you look up the parcel to where our project development site is. This is about where our private driveway would come off the private drive onto the site, and this shows you where that gas line easement is. This is then looking north, looking down onto the building pad, into you see the little bit of the building through the oaks of the buildings down below. And this is more of the project pad area, looking more northerly onto the site. And then this is a view back into the more the woodland part of the site that we're not actually touching, and a view as if you're standing at our building site looking down the driveway to the private drive. And this is some views of the neighbor's property, the neighbor that's visible uphill and sort of to the southeast. And this is the view of the, looking down our site through the oak area down to the parcels that are down below on the properties right off of Valerio. And on the site there, there's some existing structures on the site. There was an old shed there at one time. The foundation is remaining, and there was a sort of up the hill concrete element that raised the grade for planting area. We're removing all those existing structures. And this is just a view of across Valerio Street to the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, we did get one copy. I assume everyone saw it. An email from Pamela Halderman saying she supports the project. Katie, did we get any other communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
Well, the windows in the back on the first floor, how far are they back from the deck that hangs over them? I think they show on your section. Maybe they don't.
Did you see them?
You've got windows. Okay. You've got windows right here, right? Am I assuming that?
Should we look at the elevation?
Yeah,
Would that be?
maybe that's better.
Are there windows here?
Let me look at where yes, there are. These are the windows that look out into that terraced area below the deck. Those are recessed into the building. I can show you on this elevation here. Or on
So the deck above comes all the way over to the building.
That's
so
correct.
Those windows are under this wall right here.
No, they're recessed below that wall. That's the wall.
Ooh, yes.
And here is the wall that has the windows in it that look out into that area.
Look out into
a 33.5 foot raised planted area. They're really
raised planted area is behind this deck.
It's underneath the deck.
Underneath
the deck is over the top. At this upper floor, at the floor above it, the deck does this and reaches grade here. And these windows are recessed in this wall that are underneath that. The building actually, it's underneath building area there. The deck starts here and comes out
and
to
that's
touch grade.
open here.
Yes, it's
Okay.
open
Okay.
underneath. And you can see it, that's what I
It didn't show.
wanted to point out in looking here. You're looking from this side under that deck. This is the raised deck portion. Those are the windows in that wall down below.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Anyone else have questions? I just have a couple, just to make sure I understand. There was a site plan.
That's at the end.
Okay, what's this up here?
That's to be removed. That's
okay.
that concrete element I was
Okay,
talking
that's what you were talking
Yeah.
about. Okay.
That's that green, painted green
Correct.
concrete. Looks like a bunker sitting on
Cinder
it.
block bunker that the previous owner created.
And then
Created a garden that was
No.
animal proof.
that corner that's
Yes.
sitting on this easement, are
Yes.
you going to have a problem with the footings?
Well, we've
push
checked.
it back?
We've got to peel in or toe into the building because we can build right up to that easement line.
Okay.
The gas line is in the center of the easement.
Okay. And then, what are you thinking about the roof material? Because you have flat roofs?
Yes, we have flat roofs everywhere, and we're thinking about for those roof areas that are accessible, after our waterproofing material, having probably some stone or tile material on those roofs.
So you're not looking at a single membrane roofing, you're looking at a traditional built-up.
That's correct.
And then I just wanted to get clear, you had said, I'm trying to look at the drawing you have showing the decks. Is that on the first floor plan? You said that the square footage is incorrect.
Yeah. See, there's roof here, but
There's no deck there.
There's no deck there.
So the
Our
deck is here.
Our deck is here,
And there.
and our deck is here.
Okay, so that's constituting the square footage that's in the description?
Not totally. The other square footage is then at the entry terrace, this deck here.
Oh, this,
Yeah.
inside this.
Right. it's-
Okay.
right.
And the other are just terraces as they cascade up the hill.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, well, that's all the questions I have. Is any other questions? Okay. We can take any action that we deem necessary. So that means we could give it project design approval, we could give it just comments, we could give it project design approval with
I
comments.
guess we have to make comments.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I like the style of the house. I have a couple concerns. One of them, the flat roof material.
Yeah.
I went on a hike with some friends about a year ago up on the Montecito Trails, and we looked down at a series of flat homes that had flat roofs, and they said it looked like a bunch of gas stations. So I want to make sure that whatever flat roof material you use, hold on, see, I have problems.
You keep putting that in your pocket for
This has been an ongoing issue.
To really study the flat roof and kind of variate, somehow do some creative licensing in that regard. And also, the other concern I have is you have 10-foot plate heights, which is fine, but on the second story you have a lot of fenestration, and I'm just wondering if that's going to cause a lighthouse effect. With so I don't know. I'll look forward to hearing what the other architects have to say about that. And what is the material of the walls?
Exterior plaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's something you could play with too, and do some variety in that as well.
We've talked about that. We are at the conceptual phase,
Yeah.
and we've started looking at exterior materials and actually looking at a judicious use of some rain screen elements to break up the plaster massing of the building.
Or stone in the bottom or something, kind of the ode to Santa Barbara. I don't know, but those are my
We got a lot of
comments.
sandstone boulders on the property that
Yeah.
I'd like to reuse.
That would be great.
Repurpose, I should say.
Perfect.
I'd like to add one comment about the flat roofs. It's my goal to capture when it does rain ever again, as
Sure.
much rainwater from our roofs to irrigate the few fruit trees. We're going to try to save 3 or 4 of the avocados out of 3 or 4 dozen that are half dead.
Yeah.
So that's part of our stormwater management plan, I guess, is to capture what we can from our rooftop areas.
That's the trend of the future. Absolutely.
Other comments?
Yes,
Yes, Denise?
Yeah. I just really want to acknowledge you for a really lovely presentation. I mean, we rarely get something this succinct and clear, and I mean, when it's just lovely. I mean, the landscape plan's lovely. It's really easily understood, and I really love the way that you use the topography to come down the hill. As you saw for my frustration on the prior project, although I guess they couldn't really do it, but sometimes you can't. But you did a beautiful job of that. The one thing that I just wanted to tell you is that the gravel next to a public right-of-way isn't going to happen. It's not allowed, so you'll have to think of a different material in there next to your little garage. What else
These
did I
two, the water retention, they're all underground. Is that?
Yes.
Everything there's
Underground,
Was I done?
meaning
I guess so.
it's just a infiltration basin. So when there's no water, it'll look like a dry
This gets to
creek
be
bed.
when we get a big rain, they're going to be.
They're planted basins. They
Yeah.
spill. They spill to each other and filter before they
So
spill to
as
the
I'm
street.
reading this plan, they're going to take out all this asphalt right here?
That big wide entrance driveways, half of that is going to be, right now, the driveway
Landscaping.
is this one, yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
landscaping.
Yeah.
Existing driveway access, that's to that.
That's back here.
That's
yard-
to this-
that
to this property.
That's
Correct.
to this house, there's a turn right
So this will spill when we get, if and when we
Yes.
ever get any rain, this
That's
will
correct.
spill into this one, and this one will spill into
To the street.
the street.
That's correct.
But it's filtered.
But it will be filtered before it
Yeah.
spills. That's the key.
And that's huge.
Okay. Other comments?
I'm an expert.
I hope you have that problem.
Brown
I hope you have that problem.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to say that I really appreciate the applicant's efforts to design a house more fitting with the size than the previous one. I also really appreciate the landscape plan, the green design features, the restoration idea, the use of the topography, but I definitely will not be supporting this project because Changes in various neighborhoods throughout the city have raised quality of life concerns, and I'm reading this right out of our guidelines. Neighborhood character gradually changes over time. When a change is made in an established neighborhood, it is essential to properly balance that change with a respect for the design features and characteristics of surrounding properties. And then you all know this, so I won't read you, but it absolutely does not meet our neighborhood compatibility. It's a beautiful house. I love the house, but I don't think it fits the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Okay.
I got a comment. If you go up Valerio and you shoot off all the roads off the sides, a lot of those houses were built back in the 30s, and they're all different. They're all different. There's
I know the
Spanish.
neighborhood.
You turn every road you turn up there. There's a different house up there.
There's modern, too.
You can't call West Valerio any one style. You really can't.
It's a neighborhood.
Yeah, it's the whole neighborhood, and they're all different.
I'll kind of weigh in. I tend to agree with you, Joe. Having been in this neighborhood a lot, we've actually approved some very contemporary homes in the neighborhood already. If this house were on Valerio Street itself, adjacent to these homes, then I might buy into my colleague's concern about compatibility, but it's not. And it's on a very large site, and it's away from the Valerio homes that were built in the period you talked about. So I'm not concerned at all that we have a compatibility issue. I don't think that's relevant to this particular application. I am concerned about the amount of glass on that other floor. I understand why it's there, but I hope you give it some thought in terms of the color of the glazing. At night, this is going to have some sort of lantern effect, particularly to the homes that are on this other ridge over here, because one of the things I always look at, I always typically drive up to the other streets and then what can I see? So I think how you deal with that in the landscaping, and perhaps you can use some of your planting to lace that so that if it becomes a lantern at night, it's peeking through that. I know that part of your desire to live up on that top floor is the view. That's the big attribute of this project. But I think you need to be sensitive to the fact that in the night sky issue, it provides a lantern to the city.
Yes.
It also kind of works the other way because somebody with field glasses in the house across the way can look right into your living space. So that's something for you all to think about. With regards to the roof, and the reason I asked about that is that you may want to consider using a single ply application. And the only reason I say that is I just did that a few years ago at my house, and you can't imagine the amount of water I collect just when I get a mist. And I use that water to irrigate my yard. And you're going to have a much more sophisticated system than I have, other than buckets under the downspouts. So I think you might want to consider. If you do consider it that, then the color gets to be really important. And that gets back to my colleague's concern about what this looks like above. Your site will be seen by some houses, not a lot because it's so far up that hill, but some people will be looking down on it. So what that looks like from above is pretty important. So those are my bigger concerns. I understand why you have the 10-foot ceilings. If I were doing this, I probably would lower that first floor down to 8.5 or 9 feet, but that might be inconsequential given all the grading exercise you've had to do to get this thing to fit into the hillside. So without doing that exercise, I can't tell you for sure. So those are my issues. I think that this is an appropriate application of contemporary design. I think if you carefully detail it, you consider the issue of the lantern effect. Of course, we're going to be very interested in lighting. I, for one, don't think this ought to be a house that's painted white because it will have a big challenge in that direction. So I think the color palette is going to be really important when you come back to us. And the material, the actual finished materials. I know you said in general it's stucco, but There may be some other opportunities to introduce some other materials, but those are the things I'll be looking for when it does come back before the board.
Is the house high? You don't get a view out the west, do you? Is the house? You're still looking into.
You're still looking up the hill.
You're still looking up the hill.
You're looking up towards Ewing.
So basically, I mean, I drove up Valeria. If you go up Valeria, you will not be able to see the house off of Valeria at all.
No, not at all.
You can see it
it's
from
behind.
The other, you can see it from the other ridge.
Ledger Ridge.
You can't see it from Valeria.
Right.
It's impossible to see.
I want to go up and down that elevator. That looks so cool. I love that.
First thing I did when I bought the
I love it.
hire an arborist to evaluate the house. If I lost those trees, I would be devastated.
Okay, are there other comments? If they're not, then the chair would look for a motion. Again, we can give this project design approval with comments.
already?
We could just
Cool.
give it comments.
Let's do it.
You need, if you make your motion, you need to determine whether it comes back to the full board. Anyway,
I'll make a motion. I think we should bring him back 2 weeks. Can you come back in 2 weeks?
Yes.
With following comments. The board appreciates the style of the architecture. The board would like the designer, the architect, to look at studying different materials for the exterior surface treatments, study clarification of the roof material, look at studying the fenestration on the upper level regarding a lantern effect. And include a landscape plan?
There is one.
Oh, you did a beautiful job. So I strike that. Wow. So is there any comments about landscaping?
No, it's lovely.
Okay. All right. That's my motion.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor.
Perhaps address the gravel and the
Oh, the
parking.
gravel. Yeah,
Oh, and to
can't
find
do
another material other than gravel on the driveway access down at the road
No, it's
at the drive.
around. Color and
And a
material.
color material. Yes.
Did you give this project design approval?
No.
No.
I want
He's
to
saying with comments.
Oh.
His motion is with comments. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is there any other business before the board? Seeing none, the chair will then adjourn the Monday, October 17th Single Family Design Board.